Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Don't panic. Go to the black screen. Don't worry, the game is loading. I'm doing this to try to avoid having issues with Euro Truck Simulator. It's sometimes a little bit buggy, especially I found if I tab out of the game kind of has a little bit of a meltdown. So I'm doing it from. I'm going to start recording from the moment I click play on the game. That's okay, we'll get into the driving very, very soon. This is actually the third time I've tried to record this video. Tried to record it a couple of days ago. And then the first time was going very well. But then I had a bit of an altercation with a toll booth. Let's just leave it as that. And it made me lose my complete train of thought. So I stopped the recording, and then I started it again, and we had potentially a very good video. We did, instead of doing one long trip like I did last time, we did lots of like little smaller ones. And then the third one was going well, but actually it was going to be much longer than I expected to, because I had a very heavy trailer with like sort of a reel of industrial cable on it. It was like 35 tons or something. And I'm so used to using my Scania, which can deal with heavy loads. The Renault that I'm using just now is more built for sort of like normal weight cargo, not heavy cargo. So because of that, I had some issues. It was going much slower. And then, because I'll show you where I was driving in this situation. I was going. We went everywhere. We started off in Innsbruck and went across. I know we finished the last episode in Maribor, but I was doing some driving in between. So I started in Innsbruck, was going to go all the way to Calarisi or Calarasi, I don't know how you pronounce this city over here. That was the one where I had the toll booth problem. Then I started in Klagenfurt, went to Bucharest, then went from Bucharest to Varna. So yeah, lots of very Fear of Dracula related locations here. And then I was going to go from Varna all the way to Taranto, where I am now. And basically, because I was going through the West Balkans, it was really nice because I was seeing the new DLC. But then unfortunately I had an issue crossing one of the borders. The trailer I had was incredibly long. I can show you actually, if I can maybe find an example of that type of job. No, it's not going to be able to show me it, I suppose. It's kind of like this one. The trailer is incredibly long. And I was trying to get around a tight corner, going through border control, and basically I got stuck. And then, for some reason, my keyboard failed completely. And I couldn't, I could only use the Xbox controller. I got stuck on the external view of the lorry, which maybe not too much of a problem. I couldn't use it, so I couldn't activate anything on my keyboard at all. And obviously what I tried to do, I tried to log out, or try to tab out the game to then hope if I restart and make it work, but then the game just sort of crashed completely. So basically I lost about 2.5 hours of recording. So yeah, not ideal, but never mind. So we're in Taranto. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a quick trip now and see if everything's working okay. And if it is, then we can do a longer trip. I'm seeing there's one here going to Bari. Fear of Dracula people. We can take a little yacht from Taranto to Bari. And not a very long trip. That'll tell me a lot in terms of if things are working as they should be. If you're seeing all these little snowflakes across the borders, we've got the Christmas Winterland event on at the moment. So there's lots of different things you have to do to try and earn rewards and things, but I wanted to go off on a long drive. I don't want to be doing all the Christmas stuff. That's just me. So I can just keep talking, otherwise I get distracted. I lose my train of thought very easily. So, oh, that one to Bari disappeared. Nice, okay. There's one to Cagliari. I wanted to do that. Oh, there's one to Bari. We could just do that, to be honest, and then we'll see what Bari has. That's the only problem with these port cities. A lot of them are just yachts. Cars to Le Mans, that's very That's very applicable. But I don't do a long trip yet, in case I notice something strange happening, if there's lag or whatever. So yeah, let's just do a quick trip with a yacht to Bari, and then see what's available there. It's only, yeah, 60 kilometers, not very far at all, but that's fine. So yep, if anybody doesn't know, then this is just a little series of videos. This is episode 2 in the series, where I'm just going to play some Euro Truck Simulator 2, or maybe some American Truck Simulator, if ETS2 starts being buggy on me for some reason. I just drive around, I can just chat to you about things which are happening IRL, on the channel, just give you something a little bit different content on the channel. But also, you know, there is the purpose. You can see from the title of the video. It's called "Keeping You Company If You Need It." I was going to get into this a bit more. Yeah, I do apologize if my conversation starts deviating and stuff. The fact okay, Doug, because I've had this conversation at least once already. I'm now going to struggle to remember what things I have spoken about in the first video, which ones I spoke about in the recording that got deleted. I've got a little post-it note here to try and help me out. So anyway, let's go to pick up this yacht. Okay, everything's on. I've got plenty of fuel. That's another problem. I was running out of fuel on that trip as well. So yeah, it's a nice little circle of misery. It's probably a good thing to get recorded. So yeah, let's go and pick up a yacht, as you do. So yeah, I wanted to provide these videos just, you know, as I said, different content, but... Oh, turn left, and I didn't turn left. Well, Muppet. I'll go this way, it's fine. Obviously, I'm aware that, you know, there'll be people who... who might want these videos, you know, on a sort of a regular basis or semi-regular basis, just to provide a little bit of different content. And if you're having a bit of a rough day, hopefully, you know, my videos can help you out. Obviously, any of my videos can do that. It all depends on what what you want to watch. But you know, especially in a video like this, where we're kind of, you know, the purpose is to keep you company, and we're gonna sort of, you know, we can talk about that a little bit and just, you know, recognize that a bit. Because I didn't say in the previous video, this is not, the idea to do this video was not something that I came up with on my own. It was actually inspired by another Scottish YouTuber who does League of Legends content, called Ross Boomsocks. Very funny YouTuber. I liked his videos. I haven't watched a lot of his videos recently. I like his stuff. I used to play League of Legends more frequently, just because he wasn't like this really like sort of try-harding player. He'd play with his people who'd watch his Twitch streams, or he'd play with a group of friends who he got to know. Probably they were viewers of his at the beginning, but then they just became part of his community and friend group. And it'd be the sort of thing where if he would try funny builds, and if the game wasn't going well, they would just take the piss, basically. So yeah, I like watching his stuff, just as light relief. You know, I want to watch League of Legends content, but have some lighter, you know, videos to watch. And I'd still, even though I don't play much League of Legends now, I will still go back and watch some of his videos.
Go straight on.
Okay, will do. So yeah, he's been doing it now. I actually don't know if he's done it this Christmas. I haven't looked yet. I'm recording this on Christmas Day, by the way, in the evening. I had a very lazy day, and got a bit of time, so I was going to record this now. Oh, isn't this beautiful? We're going towards the actual city of Toronto, I assume. I must be on the outskirts before. Beautiful little marina here, town, sprawling off into the distance on a hill. Beautiful stuff.
Turn right.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I was going to say to you, if you don't want to watch this video, quote unquote, but you want to just listen to it podcast style, if you're doing chores or you're having trouble sleeping, you don't want to be looking at the screen. If there's anything that happens in the game, I'll try to describe it to you, rather than just say, "Oh, look at that."
Turn left.
Okay, we'll do. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, I've been to Bari. Oh, I've been to not Bari. I've been to Taranto before. I remember this harbour with the yachts. Yeah, yeah.
You have arrived at your destination. Your route guidance is now finished.
Yeah. So imagine the trailer that we're looking at here with this yacht. Imagine that, but much longer, and it makes it very difficult to get around tight corners. So yeah, they didn't think about that when they did like the border patrols and stuff. So yeah, note to self: don't take on these really heavy loads, because my truck can't handle it, and as a driver it stresses me out a bit. Okay, so we have our yacht.
Drive safe.
Will do. I'll try anyway. Let's see if we can get through this whole episode without crashing into anything. I've had some people from the Fear of Dracula Discord community who were joking because of some of the crashes we had in the previous episode. Rightly so. Ah, typical. I don't know if you've seen that. I've got a Discord notification. The minute I start trying to record this, there's a notification that somebody wants to play Fear of Dracula. Typical. Oh well.
Get ready to turn left.
So yeah. Ross Boomsocks has been releasing these videos on Christmas Day for the last couple of years, potentially this year as well, where he was just doing it just to keep people company. He'd be playing League of Legends for a bit. And I thought that was kind of a nice idea. I could have done it with a different video. Oh, I'm sort of blocking the lane here. That's a bit awkward. Sorry, AI. I'm going to have to pull out. Yep. Nobody make any jokes about that. Pull out of the junction, not pulling out of anything else. So I thought that was a really nice idea and something that I wanted to do. But I could have done it with Fear of Dracula or Wingspan. But you know, I felt with those games, I find it very hard to play those and just talk about other stuff. You know, if League of Legends is kind of a game where if you play it a lot, you can kind of mindlessly play it visually and just chat shite over the top of it. But for me, something like Fear of Dracula or Wingspan, which is what I normally play, I cannot do that. There is another option. I could have pre-recorded something, just talked over the top, but I was like, I want something a little bit interactive, so then if there's something that's happening on the screen, I can't talk about it if need be. And then it means that, you know, people who are watching my videos are not like, oh, I have to sit and watch this because he's playing Fear of Dracula, or Wingspan or whatever. So I thought this is a good thing to do. At the moment, apart from a little bit of lag at the beginning, it seems okay. So we'll keep going. I won't go at 70, I think that's pushing it a bit. Maybe go at like 60, I'll keep it there. Ooh, don't pull out cart, thank you.
At the roundabout.
Got a lot of industrial stuff around here, train lines and things. You'll notice, folks, if you didn't watch the previous episode, I will sort of cut myself off and lose train of thought. That's fine. It's going to be a long video, so hopefully I'll be able to say everything I want to say. And if not, then there'll be a third episode. So anyway, yeah, so Ross Boomsocks was doing these videos. I thought it was a really nice idea. And then also there's a football analyst YouTuber who I like called James Alcott. He put up a video yesterday, I think, called Just Checking In, and he was sort of pointing out, you know, the community that he's got, and, you know, just making, you know, talking about mental health a little bit, and just, you know, provide, you know, wants just to check in on people who are maybe having a bit of a tough time, and how, you know, if you've got a friend who's struggling a little bit, then, you know, just check in on them and things. I think I alluded to it a little bit in the previous episode, but I have struggled with my mental health. I mean, fortunately, touch wood, it's getting better. And 2023 has not been a terrible year mental health wise. I'm getting better, but still have lows. But fortunately, they are, you know, my you know, the situation I have in my life is, you know, as such that it doesn't provoke my mental health lows. Sometimes they do, but not to the same extent as I was, say, 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But when I was really struggling with my mental health, that was probably now for about 10 years ago. Really? 10 years ago? Yeah, that'd be about right. 9, 10 years ago. I didn't really recognize, what sort of state I was in. I didn't talk about it with anybody, and I also didn't realize like what it was I was actually feeling. With things like anxiety and definitely depression and imposter syndrome and all these sort of things. But even though we were kind of made aware about it at school a little bit, it wasn't something I was like really, really aware of. It wasn't like I was actively trying to, understand my feelings. I wasn't, typing into Google, why do I feel sad, and all these sort of things. So I kind of just put up with it without actually doing anything about it. It was only then, about 4 years after that, I actually suddenly realized, I was like, yeah, I've got a little bit of a problem here. I need to get help. But fortunately now it's at a point where I don't need, I'm not actively seeking therapy. I'm not, taking medication and stuff. It's at a stage where I can control it just by, having routine and, just fortunately my life situation is such where I've got people around me who can help me out or who understand me. Unfortunately, hopefully it won't get worse. But I think now I'm more aware of it, so if it does, hopefully I'll be more willing to talk about it. As weird too, then I've seen it with like, just by hearing accounts of people online or other people in my life who are struggling with certain things. And then I see similarities between how they're feeling and how I used to feel. So it's definitely not easy at all. So I never wish it on anybody. It doesn't matter to what extent it is. I never wish it on anybody. So yeah, if my videos of any type can help with that, just providing with a little bit of distraction, a little bit of comfort, then that's great. If you are struggling at any point, I hope things get better and that you find the help that you need. Or if you know there's somebody in your life who's struggling, try and help them out as much as you can. So I didn't mean to start off the video so seriously, but I think it's something that has to be. Oh, what am I doing? I was about to turn right there, which I can't. I was just mindlessly following that law. He's like, yeah, I can totally turn right here. No, I can't. It's here. I have to turn right.
Turn right.
So we're in Bari already. That's a very, very short trip up the coast. We're going to the marina. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm not delivering this yacht to some random industrial estate. So yeah, I hope it's something people will get more accustomed to talking about. So I didn't mean to start the video so seriously, but at the same time I think it's something that just has to be talked about a little bit more. We have to recognize things, and it's totally valid. It's kind of weird. I think I said it in the previous sort of iteration of this recording, where I've got a job which requires me to be present. It's not a job I do online or anything, so that has an advantage in the sense that it builds this routine. I have to leave the house and all this sort of thing, which in some ways really helps. In other ways it doesn't, because there are some days where you just really don't want to, and then you have to. And it's a job where I have to be present in front of people. It's not just I'm at a desk. I have to actually communicate with people. So that means then, I have to put on almost be like a little bit like an actor sometimes. I have to, because people will notice if you're not, feeling up to it. Yeah, that can be a bit tricky sometimes. Sometimes it's quite good because it does snap me out of it. Then other times, if if it's a particularly difficult day, then it doesn't help. But oh, I'm making a pig's ear mess of reversing this, so we'll just do that again. Ooh, there we go. It's one of those things that, you know, if somebody was like really physically ill with like, well, whatever, you know, it's kind of it's understandable that they don't go to work on a certain day, but for some reason I think there still is that kind of stigma about, you know, you wanting to say that you're mentally not feeling very well and you can't work that day. I feel like there's still a little bit of a stigma about saying that. So hopefully that's something that can change, you know. And it's just sometimes you wake up and you just know that day you can't do anything, then you know you best. Yeah, hopefully it becomes a little bit more. It's getting better. It's going in the right direction, but hopefully things become a little bit more normalized and it just people are more willing to talk about it. Hopefully. Right, I need to go get another job. Please don't. I mean, I could take a yacht all the way across Europe, but I'm not really in the mood for that. So that's not happening. So we have to go for something a bit cheaper, but that's fine. Ooh, luxury SUVs to Nice. Well, we've kind of done that route, but I'm going up Italy. We've passed Nice before. That's maybe not a bad option. We can be going to Paris. Computer processors. That'd be quite a nice long trip, and that'd be going along a route we haven't done yet, and I'm already seeing some twisty roads, so that might well be the French Alps that we're going through. Doing some chemicals to the Czech Republic. I think going to Paris is not a bad idea. I really want to go across to the West Balkans, but already seeing these are the things like air conditioners and metal centering. These, even though they're not very heavy, these are the trailers I detest, so I'm just not even... I'm not touching them with a barge pole. We could go up to Rome if we wanted. I think going to Paris is not a bad idea. That'd be a really nice long drive. I don't know how long the previous drive was that we did. Probably not as long as that. I think it's about 2,700 kilometers. So this is 1,800. That's a decent run. And then we'll be in, you know, northern France. We can go into the northern Germany. I'm not going across to the UK because the map is very poor, unfortunately. I hope they remake it. The Pro Mods version is amazing, but the base version is not very good. Hopefully they're going to slowly work and improve it. You know, we can then go from Paris into Germany, maybe up to Sweden. We can go across into like Czech Republic if we wanted to. Paris will give us a lot of options. I think Paris might be the way to go. We can go all the way up through Italy, through the Alps. I think that's a decent thing to do. So let's do that. In delivery. So yeah, especially too, like I want to release these videos over Christmas time, just because, you know, Christmas in particular can be one of the hardest times of the year, because, you know, the loneliness is maybe perpetuated more, and also you just, because, you know, it is a time of year where everyone's talking about being with family and friends, but you might be on your own because of various circumstances, or you're reflecting on what's happened in the year ahead, you know, the year that's just passed. You're thinking about what's going to happen in the year ahead, which can be quite a scary thought.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's why I want to release a couple of episodes over Christmas period, and then maybe I'll try to do this maybe on a monthly basis or so.
Get ready to turn right.
So we'll see. There's no expectation, by the way, in terms of, you know, commenting or leaving likes on this video. If you enjoy it, that's really nice, but you know, there's no pressure to comment or anything. Just
go straight on.
If my videos are there for you, then that's what I can ask for, really. So I mentioned Ross Boomsocks just now, that Scottish YouTuber, playing League of Legends mostly for fun. Another League of Legends YouTuber who used to do that, he's not playing it anymore, was a Swedish guy called Spazzy. with a 4 instead of an A. Um, he was I don't even know how I discovered him originally. It must have been because I used to play Vel'Koz. That was the champion I used to play in League of Legends. And then probably it must have been my friend who we played League of Legends together. Um, he must have told me about this Vel'Koz YouTuber, even though he used to play other champions as well, and just watched it for that. But he'd be the type of YouTuber that I would like to be if I could do it full time and not worry about money, because obviously I'm not earning any money from this. It's just a hobby. But he used to play, for hours with a group of friends, and then used to take all the footage and then edit it down. Okay, I'll unlock that differential, whatever that message was. If the game's recommending me to do something, I'll do it. So yeah, he used to play with his clan, his group of friends, and then just take all the footage and then edit it together to create sort of like videos which are sort of like 7 or 8 minute chunks of just highlights and just really funny moments. So he did show some outplays and things, but there was also just a lot. Anything funny that happened, he would edit that in. It was really cool to watch. And I definitely appreciate, YouTubers who dedicate time to actually editing videos. I say that as a YouTuber who doesn't edit. I guess it's maybe a little bit different. The games I play, I don't know how conducive they would be to edited format. So if you're playing a whole board game, you need to see everything in context. Okay, I'm gonna have to wait for the next green light. Whereas League of Legends, you maybe don't have to see the context of the whole game. If it's just something funny that you want to highlight, then you don't need to see the whole game to understand the context. So yeah, but and that was really, really cool. But then unfortunately for him, YouTube kind of changed the way the algorithm worked and the type of content that people were consuming. People didn't want to watch, these 6 or 7 minute videos of really, edited highlights, which would take a long time to edit. You could only put out like one video a week, if that, just because, he'd be editing them full time pretty much. I'm going to quickly go and that caused a bit of a traffic jam. I shouldn't have gone. I thought that sort of grey car was going to turn right for some reason. I know he wasn't indicating, but there's a billboard for a dental practice there on the right hand side. There's some very shiny white teeth.
Exit now.
So whereas then, YouTube rewarded, as much watch time as possible. They wanted to keep people on the platform for longer. So even though he was getting lots of views, the actual watch time was very short. Whereas then suddenly became the thing where people would be uploading just full gameplays. And that would hold people, on the channel for, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Exit now.
Which the algorithm. And they could upload, one video a day, every day, at the same time. Oh, that MKA plane that's ahead of us, that logo looks very suspiciously familiar. As I think all the companies in the game are fake. They can't use real ones. There are mods, I think, where you can get real companies. As I think they've had to put a lot of work in to try and create, fake-looking companies that also look realistic. It was actually kind of interesting when the Iberia DLC was released. They did a stream where they were talking to one of the developers whose whole thing was developing all the in-game company logos and things. I might have said that in the previous video, I can't remember. But I thought it was really interesting. And that was at a point where I was consuming like all the content that SES was putting out, so I was watching all their live streams and things. It was really, really cool to watch. And just to get the insider's perspective. So we got our trailer.
Let's do this.
3 tons of computer processors. Not the most glamorous, but it'll be fairly easy to drive and we get a good run. And it's midday, so we're going to have plenty of daytime driving. about 5 hours until I have to stop. I probably should look at the map to see where that would be. Actually, I might just quickly do that now then. Let's have a look. Where would I be in 5 hours, more or less? Bologna? Maybe Bologna's a little bit too far away. Yeah, Bologna's too far. That's 8 hours. Okay. Oh, 7 hours. So I'm not going to get as far up as I thought I was going to. We're going to be near Pescara then, if that's the case. Oh, that's 3 hours. Ugh. Oh, maybe this one. Yeah, perfect. That's the one I want. Excellent. Okay, so we'll be driving for 5 hours and then we're going to have to do some nighttime driving. But then we'll get a beautiful sunrise, so we can work with that. So yeah, so anyways, yeah, so yeah, with this YouTuber Spazzy, who apparently these really amazing videos, and I still go back to watch some of them because they have held up over time, despite the game changing quite a lot. But yeah, the YouTube was changing, and then yeah, also he just got burnt out with the game. As mental health was tanking, he's something that he's spoken about on his channel, and you see it a lot with these, you know, full-time. They always say, oh, it'd be great if you have a job that's your hobby, but in some ways, you know, as much as I love video gaming, I don't think I could do it as a job. Because imagine then you suddenly, you know, despise the thing that you're playing, or if you've got a community that's been built on you playing a certain game, and then you stop playing the game, and then your statistics, your views, and subscriber count then just falls off a cliff. Which is kind of what's happening. I see lots of YouTubers all the time, you know, YouTubers who years ago built up, you know, say they're having subscriber numbers of like 500,000, 1 million, and now, you know, struggling to get 50,000 views on a video. Because they're not being promoted, and yeah, it must be very difficult. I think a lot of them now, they get their money through, you know, Twitch subs and all this sort of thing. YouTube probably doesn't account for much of their revenue. I'm not sure, but that'd be my guess. So yeah, unless I had a very loyal community who I could just play whatever game I wanted and they'd be happy with it, you know. But then you have to work so hard to build up that community. That's the thing. So yeah, he doesn't play League of Legends much anymore. I think he does maybe a couple. I think he does like a Christmas stream, and he's put out during the last 12 months a couple of League of Legends videos, but not much. Just kind of plays what he wants to play, and that's absolutely fine. That's kind of the same with me with this channel as well. You know, I don't want to be known exclusively as a Fear of Dracula YouTuber, but obviously that's kind of my main thing. I know I haven't put out many new videos of me playing for a long time, what with the tournament and whatnot, but it's definitely something over the next few weeks. I definitely want to put out some more content, and then by the time I do, there'll be another tournament most likely. I don't know if I'm going to be competing. I really hope so, but I've got a lot of things in real life that I have to do and focus on first. So that has to take priority. So we'll see. So yeah, in the previous episode I talked about how I got into Fear of Dracula and how I started recording. I don't think I spoke about the other things on my channel. So Gloomhaven, as I said, I think I said in the previous episode, you know, the winter that I discovered Fear of Dracula again, that was in February time, I think, or from March I started playing the game. That Christmas, the Christmas before, I was I picked up the Gloomhaven Digital Edition, and then I was indisposed because of a certain virus which had become a pandemic, and oh, not going through that red light. So I was just playing a lot of Gloomhaven. So I really liked the game. And then when I started putting out Fear of Dracula content, I was thinking, well, even though Gloomhaven is very difficult, it's very different to Fear of Dracula. There are some similarities in terms of the skill set that's required, adaptability, using your resources, so on and so on. And I thought that might be you know, a good thing to put on the channel. And the first episode got a lot of views, and then after that, they didn't. I was really struggling to get views. And sometimes it'd be very inconsistent. Some videos I get loads of views. I say loads. You know, we're talking about 50, say. But then others would get barely. We wouldn't get to double digits. Which is a shame. I think it's just kind of one of these things where maybe the game is fun to play, but not to watch. There are not many YouTubers who actually put out Gloomhaven content, even though there are a lot of people who play Gloomhaven. Most of the Gloomhaven YouTubers are those who do more sort of like discussions about the game. They discuss the items, they'll rank the characters, and they'll do like meme-based videos, that sort of thing. There's not actually like full gameplays. There's not really a demand for that sort of thing. There is one guy called Mandatory Quest who does quite a lot of, who's probably the biggest, I think, YouTuber. But I think it's because, you know, he's got his Twitch stream following him. So if he's doing a playthrough of, you know, if it's Gloomhaven or Frosthaven or whatever, you'll have the Twitch chat with him, who then be able to interact with him. And I think that's something that's missing when you do it on a YouTube video. You know, because you can't give advice and all that sort of thing. I think I can go into any of these lanes. Yes. I didn't go into the automatic one, but I didn't really want to have a collision with that coach, so that's why. We're in a very wide motorway here. We got the main motorway, and then we had the toll booths from a slip road. Now we're joining the main motorway. I don't know what they're called in Italy, actually. In Spain they're called autopistas or autovias. I don't know what they're called in Italy. I'll have to look for a road sign and see if it says it. So yeah, anyway, I think Gloomhaven is just one of those games, and there are a lot of games like it where it's fun to play but not to watch. That's fine. I really enjoy doing the playthrough anyway. Trying as many characters as I could, and characters I've not been able to play on my you know, my playthroughs on Tabletop Simulator, just because, you know, I was playing on my own with 4 characters, which meant, you know, I could unlock them all and try them out rather than just when I'm playing with a group of friends, just focus on one character. So it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And obviously I'm not the best player, so again, there wouldn't be a lot of people. I guess, you know, you want to watch a much higher level player than me. I was only playing like on one of the middling difficulties. I think when I started Fury of Dracula, I wasn't that good either at it, but because there were so few YouTubers, it was fine because there was kind of a need for content. I think with Gloomhaven, I think it's just more, you know, the social aspect of you having a group of friends and playing at home or playing on digital. There's not really the need to watch, you know, people doing full playthroughs of scenarios, unless there's a scenario that you're finding incredibly difficult and you need a bit of help with it. But otherwise, yeah, people aren't going to watch, so that's fine. You know, if I had, you know, if I had like a monetary incentive, then I'd realize that the views weren't worth it and I would stop playing it. But because I was just doing it for fun, it didn't matter. And it was good too because it then gave me something else to play rather than Fear of Dracula all the time, because I was becoming quite obsessive with that game in a good way. And then with Wingspan, the more recent venture on the channel, that was a case of I joined the Wingspan community, I think in this, yeah, around the springtime of 2022. I discovered the game of Wingspan actually, funny enough, through Spazzy. He put up a video on his IRL, there you go, channel. Oh, AI being derpy. Where he was talking about his favourite board games, and one of them was Wingspan. I had no idea what Wingspan was. Yeah, we've actually had a collision up ahead. And I thought, and I'm not, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of birds or anything. It's not like it's a passion of mine. Oh. And we've had another AI crash right beside me. An estate car in front of me decided to pull out in front of a tanker lorry. Very smart idea. Never mind, we'll just drive past and pretend it never happened. They can sort out all the insurance details between them.
Exit right.
We'll do. Yeah, we're heading up the east coast, kind of Italy. We're not on the coast itself. We're going up the eastern side, going towards Pescara. So we're not going near Napoli and Rome. Lots of fields around here. There's some hills in the distance, but around here it's not completely flat, so to speak, but it's not very hilly either. It's not like we're in a valley. Beautiful. Don't know what these trees would be. Olive trees, maybe? Whatever it is. Lots of agriculture around here. Very green. So yeah, I discovered Wingspan through him, and I guess I wasn't the biggest fan of birds. Not that I disliked them or anything, but it wasn't like a passion of mine. But I just thought the artwork looked really cool, and it just obviously then stuck in my brain. And obviously I must have found out one way or the other that there was a digital version of the game. And then I joined the community, and I had the intention to play, but I joined the Discord immediately, actually because of trying to find people who would help, you know, in terms of giving advice about setting up the first Fear of Dracula competition. So I had no idea about organizing competitions, and nobody in the community had either. So at that time, so I wanted to get some info, and I dropped into the Discord for Wingspan. I must have bought the app because I saw the Discord. I was like, oh, perfect. So I joined the Discord, and then found there's a tournament Discord, so I joined that. So I put it into perspective in terms of size. Wingspan's a very popular game. I don't know how many are in the normal Discord server, but in the tournament server, I think there are about 2,500 members. Now, not all of them are playing regularly, but let's put it this way. I'm taking part in a competition right now that has 144 players, and they filled up those 144 players within 2 or 3 days of the sign has been open. And they've just finished the Wingspan World Cup, which had 200 players. So it gives you the size. You know, they're running, you know, 2 or 3 competitions simultaneously to give you an idea of, you know, and there are people who play in multiple competitions at the same time. But that gives you the idea of what sort of scale, rather than Fear of Dracula, where if we can get 20 for a tournament, then that's great. So obviously they're very experienced of running competitions. They've been doing it for ages. So, you know, I just jumped into the community with absolutely no, nobody knew me. I just popped in there and, you know, a bit of a, you know, cheeky bugger, just being like, oh hi, I haven't played the game, I am going to play at some point, but I'm trying to organise a competition for a different game, and clearly you've got quite a lot of experience around here. Is anybody willing to talk to me about how to organise competitions? And then this guy called Flan, who's got a YouTube channel called Winging It, he was like, yeah, I'll talk to you. So it turned out to be another Brit, which was great, and we just chatted a little bit on Discord, and very, you know, I don't know him that well, but from his videos and my interactions with him, seems like a very sound guy. And yeah, he really sort of gave really good advice on how to set things up and things. And then during the first tournament we had a little bit of a problem, so I went back to him as like, how would you solve this situation? How, you know, if this has happened in your community before, how would you deal with it? And he, you know, gave me some sound advice on that. So and just in general, the Wingspan community seems really, you know, I think it's kind of interesting, you know, given the fact it is about birds, that probably does filter out quite a lot of troublemakers, you know what I mean? I'd say with Fear of Dracula too, that's the thing. As soon as it's like board games, that immediately eliminates a certain portion of the population who are going to cause trouble, and then the more and more niche the board game becomes, that then narrows it down even more, which is kind of cool. But so yeah, we know we're chatting about it, and everyone just in that community seems really sound. We're very friendly, never had any issues. And they've been great since I've been putting up videos, you know, people have been commenting, giving me advice, which has been really, really nice of them to do so. So I just started uploading Wingspan just because, you know, I enjoy playing the game, and I think, you know, despite the size of the community, there aren't many content creators for it. I think I can operate in this little space where I'm not the best at the game, but because I'm learning, that will then serve as sort of like as a resource to see, you know, how a newer player deals with, you know, the trials and tribulations of tournaments for the game. And I just said, we're not going along the coast, we actually are. The Adriatic is right there, and there's a beautiful little cruise liner going along, probably heading towards Venice or something. So yeah, we're on our way up the Adriatic. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Wingspan. I'm definitely going to keep playing it. The thing is, now the Oceania expansion has come out, so if people don't know, the Wingspan, based on birds, and each edition of the game is geographic. So the base game is mostly based on North American birds, but there are some birds which are the same as in Europe, like the barn swallow, for example, because it exists in America and in Europe. Not in Europe all year round, they migrate from Africa, but anyway. So, there and there, and then the Atlantic puffin, for example, because they exist in Scotland, but they also exist in America too. So yeah, and then they brought out a European expansion, and then Oceania, and now Asia. So those are the physical editions of the board game. And listening to interviews with Elizabeth Hargrave, who's the creator of the game, there's definitely more expansions in the works. Whereas in digital, it was base game. I bought it with base game and European expansion, and now literally in the last 3-4 weeks of this video coming out, the Oceania expansion has become available. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Obviously on the Discord community right now, the tournament I'm playing in is only based upon the European expansion, which is fine, that's not changing. But obviously there's a lot of interest in Oceania, and obviously a lot of the views. I've seen my views have been dropping over the last few episodes. I don't know if that's because of Christmas and people being too busy to watch, or because people just want to watch Oceania and they want to see the new content, which makes perfect sense. I've got no issue with it. It makes sense that the content creators want to do lots of stuff with Oceania because it's brand new, but the Oceania expansion does change the game quite a bit. The 3 habitats, I don't want to get too technical, but the 3 habitats in the board have been balanced. One of them's been nerfed, the other 2 have been made stronger, which that in its sense I don't disagree with. But there's now a new resource in the game called Nectar, which can also act as a wild type of food, so you can use it instead of any other type of food, which I don't know if I personally like very much. And you're also having the more nectar you spend during the game, you gain points for it later on. There's like a new scoring mechanic that is based upon the amount of nectar that you spend. So you're really incentivized to use this new resource. I just don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I'd love to get it to learn how the new birds work and everything, but you know, you need this new resource to make it work. You can maybe house rule it, but in digital you can't house rule these things. So you know, and it was kind of like, you know, I spent so much time, you know, trying to learn, and I'm still not very good at it, but, you know, trying to get better at the base game and the European expansion, and suddenly I'm going to have to relearn the game all over again with the Oceania expansion, because it does change a lot. It was actually quite funny. I played a game of European expansion just randomly the other day, and the player I was playing against didn't get a very good score, and they wrote in the chat, because I've played them before and they're a decent player, and they just wrote in the chat to me, it's like, oh, I've played so much of Oceania and I don't know how to play the base game in European expansion anymore. So it does change the game a lot. The scores are much more inflated. In the base game in the European expansion, you're really having to think about the engine that you're creating, and making your turns quite efficient, whereas I just played one game of Oceania and it felt like I had no engine. I was just getting food and just throwing down these really big point birds with no engine. I was getting, you know, 112 or something as the score. When I spent literally the whole half an hour of the game just saying to myself, what the fuck is going on with these birds? What is happening? What am I supposed to be doing? I still get a score of 112. To put in perspective, my highest score with the European expansion of all time is 118. So I was suddenly like, and I had to work really hard to get that. Oh, plane has crashed on the motorway. Got everything going today. So yeah, I was just like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest. So yeah, I've been thinking about it sort of over the last few days, and my gut feeling is just like I don't want to, especially now I don't really have the time to be learning a brand new expansion and then making content for it. So I think I've kind of decided in my mind that you know the only Wingspan content I'll be putting out will be base game plus European. The next tournament that they've announced is going to be Oceania included, which makes perfect sense to me. I've got no problem with it. You know, the community has to do tournaments with Oceania because it's brand new, but also because they have to try to establish with the community, does the community like this expansion? There are some birds in the base game which are overpowered, so they now have to work out, you know, are these birds with the Oceania expansion still overpowered? Or are there other birds which are overpowered which now have to be nerfed? Well, not nerfed, because you can't nerf these birds because they can't mod the game, but they can apply certain rules that you can't play them in the first round, all that sort of thing. So it makes perfect sense to me that they're going to do tournaments with Oceania, but I've just kind of decided in my mind that I'm just not going to be involved. I hope what will happen is during the year they'll have some tournaments which are just base game and European expansion, at which point I'll then come back and play in those. But if it's Oceania, I might watch some videos about the Oceania expansion, but I'm just not personally, at the moment anyway, interested in you know, dedicating time. I'd rather be dedicating time to, you know, other real life stuff that has to be done, and also, you know, trying to further the course of, you know, further the cause, which is the Free of Jackalope community. For me, that's more important. So I've had a nice break from Free of Jackalope content, but I feel like I need to come back to do that. And it's a bit awkward because I've parked into a rest stop. We've got a beautiful view of the Adriatic, but the fueling pumps are right beside the rest stop, which is a bit awkward. Can I get a good picture here for a thumbnail? That'll do. Can I find a better one? I'll do another one. Right, 2 AM, people. Let's do a bit of nighttime driving. I could rest again, but let's do some nighttime driving. There'll be another fueling station up the road that I can go to. So yeah, I'm not going to be doing any more Wingspan content unless there are European expansion only tournaments. And we'll see what the community decides. In due course, if I want to try Oceania, I'll try Oceania. But just at the moment, it's not appealing to me, so that's okay. You have to play what you like. I'm really happy that, you know, the digital edition of Wingspan is still growing. Going back to Gloomhaven, you know, something that's been kind of cool recently is they've announced Gloomhaven 2.0. So basically, the original game of Gloomhaven is really nice, and I've really enjoyed playing it. But there are some characters which are a little bit underpowered, some which are definitely overpowered, some abilities that just don't get used, which is a bit of a shame, and some aspects of the story which are maybe not the best. So the designer of the game has gone through and edited some features of the game, reworked some of the characters. All the characters are, you know, the same characters, but their abilities have been changed and reworked and balanced and things. So it'd be really interesting to see if that ever comes to the digital edition, that you can choose which version you play with. I'd be interested to try that out. Same when Frosthaven comes out, I'd be interested to try that out too. I'm not sure though, because the original Gloomhaven I really like. There's an expansion to the original Gloomhaven called Forgotten Circles, which I've tried. And I like, you know, the new storylines and things, but the problem is some of the scenarios are incredibly complicated. They've just got like this wall of text, and they're kind of like puzzles, rather than just a scenario where you're going into a dungeon to kill stuff. There are like puzzles, which I understand would appeal to a certain person, but sometimes they're very cryptic. and at times I'm just like, I don't want to be playing like an escape room type situation. I just want to go into a dungeon and kill things, and level up my character. I don't care about trying to work out which wall I have to go through next in order to find a certain thing. I just don't care. So if Frosthaven is kind of similar to that, then maybe I won't be playing it, but we'll see. The thing is, if in digital, if quite a lot of that is automated, then we'll see. I don't know. We'll take it as it comes. It's going to be quite a long time before Frosthaven or Gloomhaven 2.0 is on digital. If they ever do come onto digital, there's nothing's been confirmed, so we'll have to see. Gloomhaven digital is very cool though. Obviously, it automates a lot of stuff, so it makes scenarios much easier to play. You can play it multiplayer. The tutorial is actually really good. I think a lot of board game, app designers should look at the Gloomhaven tutorial in terms of how it doesn't just tell you like you have to play 2 cards each round, blah blah blah. It actually shows you different scenarios and tells you like, right, what is the best thing you need to do here in order to not take damage and maximize your damage, which I think is really cool. And that's the way to do a tutorial. So it actually teaches you how to play the game from a strategy perspective, not just here are the buttons you have to click. So there you go. I'm just having a look. We got beautiful nights. That's another thing that was real shame from the previous recording that got lost. We had a very beautiful night sky and sunrise. There is a beautiful night sky here. But the problem is because there are some lights about. Because there are some population centres and things. A little bit of light pollution. It's not the best, but it's still very beautiful though. I was going through the countryside, the Albanian countryside, and it was almost pitch black, and the sky looked beautiful. Very nicely done. They put a lot of effort into this game in terms of, I talked about before, when they did the daylight lighting update, which was, I want to say 2 years ago, but it's probably more than that. It just changed how the entire game looked. And then now they've done the night sky and the weather effects. It's amazing. Apologies, by the way, if my voice sounds tired. I'm not actually that tired. I say that I'm probably going to start yawning now. It's just because it's 10 o'clock at night, so I can't talk exceedingly loud, but that's okay. See, I've noticed though, since the Wingspan community's got on board with my videos, I have seen quite big subscriber growth. I was hoping to try and get to 100 by the end of the year. I'm now on 116. You never know, I might be up on 120 by the time you see this video. So, that's been really cool. But at the same time, as I said, I'm doing it just for the enjoyment of it, and I'd rather have, say, 100 regular viewers rather than, these huge subscriber counts, and then very few, very small percentage actually watch the videos. So, in the previous episode, I didn't actually talk very much about other board games that I like. Fear of Dracula is probably definitely the densest game in terms of the weight, the difficulty of the game. That's definitely the weightiest game that I really like playing. There are other games which I've heard about, but I think just because I've never had a board game group who are really, really into those type of games, things like Twilight Imperium and this sort of thing. I think it's Spirit Island and all this sort of thing. I've never played any of them. That's okay. I think that's one of those things when I showed my friends Fear of Dracula. I don't think they were ready to play something of that type of length of time that you need to play the game, and also that type of weight of game. But that's okay. Fortunately, I found the digital community, so that.
Finding new routes.
Yeah, sorry, Doug. I need to go and get fuel, mate. Let me get some fuel, and then we'll go in the right direction. I promise. Yeah, there we go. I'm not running out of fuel on this video. That's very embarrassing. I had it once. This is where I started playing the game. I ran out of fuel. And I was running out of fuel. And literally, I'm not joking. I was at the top of a hill, and at the bottom of the hill, I could see the petrol station. Nah, my truck conked out at the top of the hill. Couldn't believe it. And literally, it was like, you know, in terms of in-game distance, it was like 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers down the road. You're like, no, why do you do this to me? There are some stretches of motorway which have very, very few service stations and things, which makes it incredibly difficult. Oh, this night sky. Where's the moon? No sign of the moon. Probably above us at the moment, I can't see it very well. Let's go into the outside view for a bit. Oh, am I going too fast? I am going too fast. Okay, let's stop that. And you can admire the outside view a little bit if you are watching. If you're not watching, that's okay. Just beautiful starry sky ahead of us. I don't know if the constellations are real. They probably have made them real. It'd be very weird for them not to have done. Maybe that was too much work, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a static night sky or if they actually move. I probably imagine them it's static, but... So yeah, other board games. Yeah, with my... I mean, when I was a kid, played, you know, classic board games like Monopoly and Ludo and all this sort of thing, and Game of Life. And obviously then you discover later that there's more to board games than that, than those sort of things. So I think the first time I ever went to a board game cafe, this was now probably 8 years ago. What were the games we played? We played Quirkle. I don't know how we played Quirkle. We had a very big group. Maybe more people turned up later. We played Quirkle. We played Coup. No, did we play Coup? No, we didn't play Coup. We played the Avalon, the Resistance Avalon, or Avalon the Resistance. I can't remember which way around it is. If you don't know it, it's like a social deduction based game. You're given a role, either good or bad. If you're good, you've got to try and find all the other good characters. If you're bad, you've got to try and sabotage all the quests and try and stay hidden. And there'll be some characters in the game who know more information than others. And they've got to try and... So one of them, because it's the Avalon version, one of the characters is Merlin, who knows all the good characters, but if Merlin is too obvious in the way he convinces all the other good people who the good people are, he can get assassinated at the end of the game, and then the good guys win. So, sorry, the bad guys win, the good guys lose. So yeah, he's got to do it carefully, a little bit, you know, a little bit of undercover shenanigans going on. And now we're starting to get the sunrise. The night sky has gone away. The sun will be rising very, very soon. You can't see the coast anymore. We've obviously gone a little bit further inland, so we can't see the Adriatic. Can't wait to go through the Alps. It's going to be a very beautiful drive. So yeah, play those sort of games. You know, your classic gateway games like Ticket to Ride, a little bit of Catan, not too much. Again, played Carcassonne once or twice, but not much. Takenoko, I've played and I really like that game. Tokaido, which is a game where you're going on a little spiritual and cultural holiday through Japan. And it looks very zen. It's like, oh, you get to move on to this space and paint a picture, or you can get to go to this space and pay some money to the temple, go to a hot spa and try and hopefully find some monkeys sitting there or whatever. But in reality, it's quite cutthroat because, you know, all the other players are trying to do the same thing, so they'll block the available spaces and all this sort of stuff. And if you jump forward too far on the board, in order to get a thing, you know, to have a certain experience that you really want to have, because the way that you play the game is it's not in turn order. You don't go around the board, around the table. Does that mean I have to turn? Yeah, I have to get into the left-hand lane. Lorry, please. Thank you. What? Now, That's cobblers, I'm afraid. It says I crashed into something. I saw it in my rear view mirror. That car slowed down for me. That's absolute cobblers. Oh well, so much for... Oh, let's get through this episode without crashing into anything. That was silly. But it must have crashed into me, like, after I'd completely gone into the lane. Oh dear. Oh well. So yeah, because the way it works is that you don't go around the table and talk out everyone in order. It's whichever player is at the back of the queue goes next. So if you jump really far forward to achieve something, or to complete an experience of some sort, you're giving up loads of turns to all the other people behind you. But obviously if you go too slowly, somebody might block the space that you want. So it's kind of like this really cool interaction. And the artwork is very cool. What other games do I like? The only other game I think of like really heavyweight that I've played was Dead of Winter. That my group enjoyed that a lot more. They like that sort of traitor aspect to it. Again, there's a lot of storytelling involved with that, whereas maybe Fear Dracula there's not as much. In terms of like, you know, thematically things happen. What else? Yeah, things like Coup, which is another sort of like social deduction game where you have to lie and all this sort of thing. Yeah, I've not played a lot of very heavy games. So, I mean, that's the thing, you know, you talk about these gateway games, and now you've got new ones like Azul and Sagrada and this sort of thing. But I don't see the word gateway game as an insult. It's not a case of like, oh, this is a gateway game, but then once you really like this game, you get fed up of it and you want to play something that is heavier. No, not necessarily. If you're you know, a gamer, or if you're a couple or a group who just really enjoy playing games like Ticket to Ride and Catan and these sort of games, but you're not interested in playing anything heavier, that's totally fine. Oh, and there's a fire in the other side of the motorway. God, everything's been happening today. Unfortunately, the cab's far away. It's just a fuel tanker that's burning. No firefighters, but hopefully they'll be there soon. So yeah, I think there's a board game out there for everybody. You just gotta find it, and also you need to be taught it correctly. I think that's the thing. Is teaching board games is a real skill. In order to convey all the information, but not in a way that's boring, or you know, you miss things out, or you confuse the people who are, you know, people who are gonna then play it. As an example, a game that I am aware of that is incredibly popular is a game called Seven Wonders. I know it's got a lot of accolades, but I got taught it, and I hated that game. I thought it was rubbish. I didn't see the point of it. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. But again, maybe it's just the particular moment. Maybe I didn't get taught it well. Maybe I was in the wrong, you know, again, situation, you know, maybe mentally to take it all in. Oh, I'm gonna have to put my foot down, try and get ahead of this, and I hope he doesn't plow into the back of me like that car did. Nope, you stay there. Good boy. So yeah, I think that's one of those things. I mean, case in point, I would not call call my wife a gamer in any stretch of the imagination. Or at least when I met her, I wouldn't call her that. I wouldn't have called her that. But then she got introduced to board games a little bit, and she really likes them. One in particular that really stands out, there's a game called Welcome to, I think it's called Welcome to Your Perfect Neighborhood, I think. But we just call it Welcome. So it's kind of like Yahtzee. If you know the game of Yahtzee where you're rolling dice and then you're having to fill in, you got a sheet of paper with lots of different things you have to do with the dice, and every time you do a turn, you complete something, you tick it off the list. It's kind of the same as that, but rather than with dice, it's with cards, and you're basically constructing a neighborhood. So it's a roll and write, but rather than roll and write, it's a draw and write, because it's with cards rather than dice. But anyway, and I remember I picked it up. We were on a trip a couple of summers ago, and we had a very long train journey. I brought the game out, because it was obviously quite small, so it was very easy to carry around with me. And I taught it to her. When I explained the rules to her, she kind of looked at me like I was going mad. She was like, what is happening here? And even the person who was sitting next to us on the train, even though they weren't involved with the game, was just like, I don't understand it either. And I was like, let's just play a couple of rounds and you'll see what I mean. if I told you then that we played it every single day that summer, I would not be lying. We played multiple games a day, and she was hooked. She was completely hooked on it. I think that's the thing. Like, if you discover a game that you like, you'll just get sucked in. And now, we bought a few board games. We've got Azul and Takenoko. I got Tokaido here. I bought Wingspan. I've started trying to teach her how to play it. But obviously, she's noticed that compared to some of the other games, it is more difficult. A very different type of game. Now we've got Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is another one that Spazzy recommended in that board game video of his, and we really love playing that. So, and again, these are not the most difficult games that you can imagine, but if you have a lot of fun playing them and you have great time playing it, then that's all they're there for, really. You don't have to play the most difficult game on earth. It's enjoyment and difficulty necessarily do not scale with each other. It just depends on what you like. So if anybody's watching this who doesn't play board games, I don't know how that'd be possible watching my videos, but maybe, right? Try and get board games are great, and they're not just like Monopoly, right? Most games nowadays, they do not have player elimination, so you're not stuck there watching everybody else around the table playing it. They don't go on for hours. Well, sometimes they can. It depends on the game, but a lot of them don't. The best sort of board games, especially gateway games, will finish within kind of like the hour and a half kind of range, which is a decent time. And the best games, will be ones where the actions are very simple. There'll be the underlying strategy that's difficult, but you can learn it over time, which is great. So it doesn't take very long to explain. So in that sense, it's perfect. So I like anything really. The other day I actually got taught Airlines Europe, which is a game that was created by the same guy who created Ticket to Ride. Obviously, it's based on airlines rather than trains, and there is difference in the sense that there are sort of communal air companies that you're having to use, and you can inflate the value of them and try to compete for the most shares in a certain company based upon what routes they've done. But again, there's 4 very basic actions are very easy to teach. Only then once the game finished, we actually sat down and talked a lot about the strategy, and I was seeing my opponent even though I managed to win. Just because of the way, we're playing 2 players, so then when the 3rd player kicked it in at the end of the game, it changed everything. But I was watching, how my opponent was doing things. I was like, oh, right, that's really cool. Oh, yeah, we did this, right? So you learn a lot from each other, which is really nice. And a lot of the thing, too, is like the scoring for these games is not calculated until the end. So it means you don't look at some sort of... Sorry, there's a car that crashed into the barrier. Is that like a... Oh, that's actually just a... That wasn't an AI. That was just like a thing that the game had spawned. Okay, interesting. So yeah, the scoring is not revealed until the end of the game. So that means, technically everybody still has a chance to win. Which is a great aspect of the game, of these games. They're kind of called like these Euro style games. It's not like a game like Monopoly where you can just look and you see the stack of money that one person has compared to the other. It's like, well, this is impossible. It's just a slow, inevitable death. These board games. Can I go in here? Yes. Yeah, I'm not going into the cash queue. I'll go into the card queue. This is much shorter. Yeah, these type of board games, they have a very fixed length of the game. Even something like Fear of Dracula, which does take a long time to play, because of the way the game is designed. 174 euros? Are you having a laugh, Italy? What is all this about? I know I've driven up most of the country on toll road, but even still, God, I'm taking the piss. We're actually really close to Milan, because we're seeing signs here for the centre of Milan, which we've gone a long way already. Yeah, so it's not like, a game like Fear of Dracula, even though it takes a long time to play, it's just because of the complexity of it. But you know for a fact it's like, right, after X number of turns, the game is probably going to end. You know, there's a certain range that you'll know how long the game will last. So the game can't go on for an infinite length of time. Unlike something like Monopoly, where you get like two really strong players just eking out tiny advantages. You're just sitting there going like, oh, I want this to end. If you're a player who's just been eliminated, and you're sitting there watching them play for ages. That's a really cool thing about these Euro-style games. There's a very fixed mechanic in terms of like when the game ends. The scoring system is such that there are multiple ways to score, and some of those ways of scoring are not revealed until the end of the game, where everything's revealed. So everybody's got a chance to win. And because the games are not that long, relatively speaking, if you've made a mistake, it's not costing you, 4 hours of your life. So yeah, there's a lot of really good board games. I recommend just pick one that sounds interesting to you, right? You can go on and find recommendations and things, but just try and find one that's based on a theme that you like. That's probably the first thing to do, and then just go from there.
Exit right.
As a kid, if I was imagining myself as a kid, if I was given, if I went into a board game shop as a 8 or 9-year-old me, excuse me, and if my parents were like, right, what board game do you want to play? As a kid, I really like trains, so I'd probably pick the one which has trains on it. So that'd be Ticket to Ride. I think that's just the way to do it. I see it with the Wingspan community. There are just so many people who play the game because they are generally interested in birds, or maybe people who've become interested in birds because of the game. So I think there's a dual purpose there. Oh crap! That was I almost caused an accident, and that would have been my own fault. I just pulled in there way too abruptly. So if I can, if I'm able to play some other games with maybe some of the folk from the Fear of Jackal community on Tabletop Simulator or something, I could record it and release it to the channel for a little bit of variety content. It'd be quite good if we can play games that have a little bit of social deduction aspect to them, so there's a little bit of chat and conflict and stuff. But we'll see. We'll see what I can do. It depends on time and availability and all that sort of stuff. Also, the people who I'd be most likely to play with would be, either British, but there are not many British people in the Fear of Jackal community, so it'd be Americans, and just because of the language barrier and all that sort of thing. But then, because of time difference, it can be quite difficult to play. Oh, as I veer off the road because I'm not looking at where I'm going, rather. So we'll see. I had some comments on the previous video about Scotland and the bagpipes and things. Seem to enjoy the chat about that. I don't think there's much more I want to talk about with the bagpipes at the moment anyway. I haven't actually played them since I recorded that video, just because it's been quite cold where I am at the moment. I've also been a little bit sick with colds and things, so I haven't gone out, but it's definitely after the new year I want to get into the habit of still playing. So I really enjoy it. At the moment, there's nothing too much about Scotland I want to talk about. But there might be some other things that will come up. I'll think of and I can mention in the next, future episodes. One thing I do want to talk about, though, I thought was quite maybe potentially funny topic of conversation would be, now having this kind of this new identity in terms of living in Spain. I did mention before the way I identify myself. I identify myself as Scottish rather than English, even though I was born in England, just because I don't have any memory of living there. You don't re-identify. Well, I was going to say you normally don't identify with a place that you've never lived in, but then I'm going to contradict that thought immediately by, I have German ancestry, My maternal grandmother was German, and for some reason I really identify, not strongly about it. It's not like I'm, patriotic sense or anything, but just, I'm really interested in it. And, and I identify quite strongly with this European kind of like side of me. More so than, the English side was kind of weird, even though both my parents are English in terms of birth. It's just weird how, you latch onto certain aspects of your heritage and other parts no, it just depends. I think it's because, as I said in the previous episode, because I was living in Scotland, there is kind of like this little bit of a England-Scotland rivalry. So when I was younger, I had to maybe suppress the English side. So because of that, then as I've gotten older, I don't put so much importance on it as I might have done anyway. But no, I really like the fact that I've got, this German ancestry. And I've heard, I don't know the whole family story, but there seems to be quite a lot of, from that side of the family, it's not just German, there seems to be quite a lot of variety going on. So goodness knows what other nationalities I've got mixed in. But I must sound like one of those Americans who will say things like, I'm Italian, but they're only like, 2.5% Italian or something. I think it's because obviously like the proximity aspect of it too, because obviously Britain, geographically, at least, is very close to Europe, and it's something that somewhere where you can go very easily. It's not this far off place across the ocean. Yeah, and as too when I was in school, at least in my secondary school and most schools in Scotland, the foreign language that everybody was expected to learn, at least up to the end of the 4th year, it was French. So I had to do French, which at the time I didn't really care about very much. I mean, in terms of the way that we were examined, I was good at it. But in terms of actually, having a proper, an actual ability to use it in the wild, that was non-existent. Because obviously we were taught very much to, reading and writing, but speaking was not something that we were taught as much. It wasn't the focus. Which I understand if you're in a class with 20 or 30 kids, it's quite hard. It's much easier just to teach them to read and write and stuff. The problem is a lot of it was taught by translation, which I guess if you're somebody who is willing just to sit there and, memorize all the vocabulary lists, that's great. But I wasn't really interested in that. Whereas, now, I'll come back onto French and German in a sec, but now I'm learning Spanish. And it's probably the first language I've learned which has not been learned through translation. We do have conversations where we talk about the construction of Spanish compared to English, which is kind of useful because it sort of contextualizes things a bit and you understand the similarities and differences between the language. So it's not taught from translation in the sense it's like it's not as if the teacher writes up a sentence in Spanish and then writes the English translation underneath and I have to memorize that. That's not how we learn. That's not how I'm learning it. It's not how I'm being taught. So that's a real difference, and it's much more enjoyable in that way. It's not about memorizing lists of things. It's about actually trying to understand how the language is constructed and how you use it. And if you see similarities between your own language and the foreign language, then that's great. It really will aid your learning, but then you'll realize there'll be other times where the two languages are very different from each other. I'm just seeing that there are signs here for the south of Turin. So we're not far away from the Alps, folks. I can see some mountains on the horizon already. So I think the driving experience is definitely going to be different from now on. I need to find somewhere to stop. I've only got an hour left, so yeah, I'm going to have to be a bit careful. Got the outskirts of the city. Got some skyscrapers off in the distance too. behind us. We're just bypassing the city now. So anyway, yeah, I didn't really care about French, which now, looking back, I regret a lot. Because we actually had a native French speaker as our teacher, which is kind of unusual, I'd say. But yeah, I wasn't interested, unfortunately.
Right.
I got then the opportunity when I was in the third year of school to do German, but the thing was I couldn't pick. It was not a case of like, oh, you could do French or German. Nah, it was French for certain, and then you could do German on top. So I did both because I wanted to learn German. But obviously, most of my peers did not pick to do German because maybe I think they would have done better at German rather than French. But it's just when they had to learn, they had to do both. They're like, ew, no, that sounds horrible. Let's do something else instead. Because in that stage, and how the Scottish education system works, you actually have to pick your subjects for the third and fourth year. It's not a general curriculum. You get to pick the things you want. So obviously, then they wanted to pick a different subject. I did both. But again, I really enjoyed learning German. Obviously, because of my identity, I kind of connected with it a bit more. And I had more sort of intrinsic motivation to learn it because of that heritage rather than French. I was just like, meh, I don't care about this. Obviously now I regret it. That's something just part of the, part of maturing and part of getting older. You realize mistakes that you made, but it's one of those things. The same, even though I really enjoyed learning German, and I learned it to a much higher level than I did with French. Speaking ability was almost non-existent. So then I went to Germany for an Erasmus. So for American viewers who don't know what that is, it's basically a year abroad scheme that is inside the European Union, where you can, if you're studying at university, you can then go and study at another university in Europe for a year, and most of your costs get covered by, the scheme. And gets paid for by the European Union or your home government or that sort of thing. And obviously, I realise that American students can do year abroads as well, as can people from Australia and India and China and all this sort of thing. But the thing is that because of the Erasmus scheme, there's funding available, which makes it much easier for students to do. So they're not expected to pay extortionate tuition fees to go and study in another country. I know, for example, in my country, if you're an American student having to study in the UK, it's very expensive for your undergraduate degree, and also for a master's, it's way more. And also the amount of bureaucracy that there is in terms of setting up these Erasmus agreements between different universities is relatively straightforward. I was fortunately, when I was at university, my tutor for the first couple of years before he retired was actually the coordinator of all these sort of Erasmus and year abroad schemes and all this sort of thing, and he told me quite a lot about it and just how the amount of bureaucracy it would take to set up a year abroad collaboration with an American university or a Japanese university would be extortionate, whereas with European universities it's almost like almost an overnight process. It's very, very easy. So I'm exaggerating slightly, but
Never mind. I'll find a new route.
now we're just getting fuel, Doug. Calm yourself. Oh no, it's not fuel. I actually need to rest. See, I got sidetracked. I forgot what I was doing. Okay. Where can I? Is there another? So I'm just going to look into the map. Oh, and I'm going to have to... Oh, there is one up the road. Perfect. Okay. I won't even bother to reverse then. Oops. Got distracted. Talk about Erasmus schemes. Yeah, so, it's much easier to set up. A lot less red tape, because a lot of it's done sort of like by the scheme itself. So the universities don't have so much to do, which is great. And it just gives more opportunity for people to study abroad. And in Europe there are so many and I'm an example of that. There are so many couples now who are international because they met each other at university or through Erasmus schemes and all this sort of thing. So there's a lot of very multicultural sort of approach, which is really cool. And you're all sharing expertise, and you're becoming way more open-minded and independent because you're having to live not just in a different city, but you're having to go to a completely different country and deal with homesickness and all of this sort of stuff. Oh, a bit of a traffic jam here, trying to get out of this toll booth. AI being derpy as per usual. So yeah, I went to Germany on my Erasmus, and yeah, it was just then typical. I was like, right, I can immerse myself, I can learn German. But then two things happened. Firstly, mental health tanked, so I did not have much enthusiasm to go out and all this sort of thing. But then also, the minute I turn up, and the minute they see me and they go, oh, you're a native English speaker, we want to speak English to you because we want to improve our English. And you're like, oh no, I'm going to have to jump this queue because this is getting silly. I don't know what the AI is doing here. Yeah, this yellow car is just having a bit of a brain fart, so sorry, I need to go and rest. We're about to cross the border into France. That's what I'm stopping at, which I think is a pretty appropriate place to stop for a rest. Oh, I can park in here. Perfect. Oh, maybe this could be the thumbnail. Yeah. Make that the thumbnail. I will rest. It'll be nighttime again. Oh, it's gonna be nighttime through the Alps, so that's a real shame. Oh well. Is what it is. C'est la vie. Now that's French. Yeah, so yeah, so mental health tanked, and also, as soon as I turned up, and they were like, oh cool, you're a native English speaker. We can speak English with you, as that truck almost crashes into me. So yeah, I didn't speak German. And again, I regret it immensely, and I should have travelled more, and I didn't, which again is a huge regret. Hopefully later on in my life I can remedy that, and yeah, reconnect. And then at school I also learned a little bit of Russian as well, but very, very basic level. Very, very basic. But again, it was really good fun. It was a really nice challenge. I had to go back to that learning process of seeing it all from scratch. But yeah, now I'm learning Spanish, and it's probably the first language I've ever learned where I can actually, speak it. It was taught. Yeah, we had books and things. Of course, we have this, and I'm trying to I want to study for an official qualification. I'm trying to do the B2 level. I don't know if B2 is a thing that exists in America. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think there's a European thing. There's like a framework of languages. So if the qualifications are given a certain certification. So it means then it doesn't matter what language it's in. If you say, oh, it's B1 or it's C1 or whatever, everyone will understand more or less what sort of level it is you're at, regardless of what language it is. So yeah, I want to do the B2 level in Spanish this year. I'm looking good for it at the moment. I've got a lot of things I still have to work on. And of course, we're working from books, obviously. It's not just conversation classes or anything. Yeah, go on, Caravan, I'll give you some space. But, the book is like a prompt in order to learn the grammar and provide context that we can then use for conversation. It's really nice actually having a language where I can actually, I can hold a conversation. And some of the topics are quite difficult. In the unit that I've just done, there's a whole section about, there's only B2 level, by the way, and we had to do a conversation about like mediation. If you're in if you've got like a family dispute or like a a conflict at work or something, you know, how would you mediate the situation? I was like, oh my good grief, this is very advanced. I couldn't even imagine doing this in English, let alone in a foreign language. But they're really sort of pushing you to think more about the language, and you know, it's really taking you out of your comfort zone, but it makes you think a lot about what it is you're trying to say and the vocabulary that you need. It's last couple of days I've been trying to do some reading tests and just try and get that skill built up in terms of reading quicker. There's one particular type of exercise that my teacher and I were doing in class a lot, which is an exercise where you got a text of like about 500 words, and throughout the text there'll be gaps, and for each gap you have to pick the correct word that will fit in the space from a choice of 3. Some of them are vocabulary based, but quite a lot of them are sort of verb tenses and prepositions, all this sort of thing. And quite a lot of the ones that we've been doing have been normally non-fiction based, so there'll be, I don't know, the one we did in class the other day was about the sorry, I'm just mesmerized by the moon. We have got the moon ahead of us now, and it is beautiful. Beautiful crescent moon. The moon phases do change. I was not like that when I was playing the game earlier. I don't know exactly how, you know, they structure the phase of the moon changing, you know, in terms of what sort of time scale it is. But anyway, yeah, we were doing, what was it about? It was about the history of the banking industry. That sounds very intense, but it was just very general, sort of broad, you know, very broad brushstrokes in terms of, you know, it was originally started in Mesopotamia and then ancient Greece and all that sort of stuff, and then how it evolved with technology and things. Very, very basic, general stuff. We did some other ones about famous Spanish singers and scientists and all this sort of thing. But then the one I had to do in the exam book was an extract from a novel, and I had no idea what the novel was, and you were just thrown straight into it with no context. I was like, I don't know what's happening here. All I could figure out was like the writer was talking about somebody who had died. I don't know if it was a friend or a relative, and all this stuff. And I just, there's huge parts of the text, I was like, I haven't got a clue what's happening here. There was so much vocabulary I didn't know. But fortunately, because of intuition, I was able to work out most of the answers. Because it was like verb tense stuff, so I was able to work it out. Even if I didn't understand what the verb meant, I could work out from context what the verb tense meant. What verb tense I needed. So yeah, it's really a case of like pushing yourself. It's kind of interesting too, because I've got, you know, potentially one of the best resources to be learning a language, which is, you know, being in a relationship with somebody who is, you know, the native speaker, you know, whose mother tongue is that language. Yeah, we speak in English to each other, and we met in English, and it's something I've kind of realized since I've been living here. So I don't know if I said it in the previous video, but I live in Catalonia, which is the northeastern region of Spain. And in Catalonia, most people who live here are bilingual. There are some who are not, you know, immigrant populations or people from other parts of Spain won't be, but, you know, younger generations or people who've lived there their whole life, they'll be bilingual, with Spanish being the national language, and also Catalan, which is the regional language. And Catalan here is really promoted in the sense, you know, there are TV channels in Catalan. When kids go to school, they the main language of teaching should be Catalan. There are some schools which are not doing it, and they'll have, you know, people teaching in Spanish. Obviously, if they're learning Spanish, then obviously the classes will be in Spanish. And there are some classes now which are actually done in English, funnily enough. But you know, in theory, you know, the educative language will be Catalan. So people here are brought up bilingual, which then presents a very interesting situation as somebody, as a foreigner who, you know, I learned a little bit of Spanish before I came here, and then suddenly you get dropped in here and people are like, yeah, we speak Catalan, not Spanish. You're like, oh. But the thing is, like, everybody here knows Spanish, so they do know how to speak it. But then it presents quite interesting situations, and obviously as somebody who came from a monolingual society, You know, a lot of things I didn't realize. I've had to learn it just by experiencing it. So, I mean, in Scotland there are some, you know, bilingual people if they come from other cultures, or there's also a Celtic language called Gaelic, which is very, very different to English. It's a very, very old Celtic language. So there are some people who are bilingual. I did actually know some people growing up in Scotland who were bilingual because their families spoke Gaelic, but the population that speaks Gaelic is incredibly small, unfortunately. It's a dying language. It's not taught in school. I mean, if I had the choice, you know, if I had the choice when I was at school, or had, I guess that'd be the correct way of saying it. If I had the choice when I was at school to learn French or to learn Gaelic, I would have picked Gaelic easily, just because, you know, it's the language of the country. But there are not enough people who speak Gaelic, so then naturally there are a shortage of Gaelic teachers in order to teach it to the whole population. So it's a real shame. I hope Gaelic finds a resurgence, but I think it might be too late, unfortunately. You know, the number of people who speak Gaelic, you know, in terms of percentage of the population, you're looking at like, you know, we're looking at below 5%, and that's probably being very generous. So it's a real shame. But here it's very different, where, you know, Catalan's very much been promoted, even during, you know, the period of time in Spain where it was under the dictatorship of Franco, where, you know, the regional autonomies were, you know, the autonomy of all these regional communities was suppressed somewhat, and Catalan was not the language of education in Catalonia. Families still spoke in Catalan, and people still spoke in the street in Catalan, because how on earth are you supposed to, how can you enforce a ban of a language? It is impossible. You can't stop people from speaking a language. You can stop them in terms of, you know, not educating them in the language, but families will speak to each other in whatever language that they want. So it'd be a waste of time trying to suppress it in that sense. But obviously now it's, you know, an educated language and everything.
Keep right, and then exit right.
And, you know, as somebody who comes from a monolingual society, I didn't understand what it's like to live in a bilingual society. I think it surprised quite a lot of people when I then go back to the UK and I explain to them, you know, how bilingualism works. You know, you assume that you just have both languages in your head and you switch between them freely at will, which some people can do, but the thing is, it's not like you speak with everybody in a bilingual way. You meet somebody, so if you've got your family members or your friends or whoever, and whatever language that you met them in will be the language that you'll speak to them all the time. You know, you won't flip-flop with, you know, between the two languages with the same person. You know, I've had discussions with people here where I've asked them, you know, you always speak in Spanish with this person. What would happen if you spoke to them in Catalan, or vice versa? And they always give me the same answer. They would say, oh, it would be really, really weird. It would feel really unnatural. It would feel like you don't know the person. It'd be like talking to a stranger. So, you know, the relationship you have with a certain person is very much, you know, linked to the language that you speak to them in, which is very interesting to observe. Obviously, then that causes difficulties for me, where, you know, if there are a group of people who are very much, you know, Catalan speakers, in the sense that, you know, intrinsically they speak to each other in Catalan, it's then very hard for me to be involved in the conversation where I'm, you know, a Spanish speaker. I do know Catalan. I know Catalan in the sense of, like, I could probably read it okay, as long as it's not a very complicated text, obviously. But, you know, if I'm doing B2 texts in Spanish, you know, if you gave me a comparative level, more or less, in Catalan, I'd probably be able to understand it. But the difference is I can't speak it. So it's kind of going back to the what happened before, but it's just because it just naturally happened that way. When I came here, I had already been learning some Spanish in Edinburgh before I came over here, and I did at the beginning have you know, a Catalan class and a Spanish class every week. But the thing is, I did it with the same teacher, so there was no separation between the two languages, which is not the teacher's fault. That was just the way it was, you know, we organised it. And also, it'd be a case of where if I didn't know how to say something in Catalan, I would just say it, the Spanish word with Catalan pronunciation, and just hoped it would be correct. Or sometimes I'd just be even lazier and just speak in Spanish. And my teacher, she was a lovely teacher, but yeah, she didn't have the, you know,
Keep right.
the strictness about it to say, you know, speaking the wrong language. But I think, you know, she realized, you know, how difficult it is how to try and do 2 languages at once. Oh, and I just had a speeding offence. For €1,000, I did not see that the speed limit changed. I was too busy talking about languages. See, that's what happens, I get distracted. That's fine. Not a problem. I can absorb €1,000. It didn't help. I was right beside a cop car, so I got hit for even more. What was I talking about? So yeah, so I did try to learn both. And the thing is, if you don't know anything about Catalan, it is similar to Spanish in the sense it is a Latin-based language. Oh, damn. I could have actually gone into the automatic paying. It looked like a stop sign, so I couldn't go into it. It was just a 30 sign. Oh, never mind. I'll pay this way. They're both Latin-based languages, and there are similarities. Catalan does have some French elements mixed in, which also would have made learning French much easier. If you know, it'd been much easier to learn Catalan if I'd actually paid attention in French class, but never mind. I wasn't to know that as a 14 or 15-year-old that I'd be living very close to France as I got older, but never mind. They are very similar, but there are enough basic differences between them that when you try to speak it, you'll just make loads of mistakes in terms of spelling, in terms of the way the accents work, very small differences, and then there are some words which are quite basic, but they are very, very different from each other. So it's very easy to get it wrong. And there's a point where I just kind of realized, I was like, nah, let's get good with one of them first, and then I'll progress to the other. So I was like, well, I've already got the higher level in Spanish, so let's just go from there, because that'll be easier. So that's what I did. So now, and I've really noticed in the last sort of 18 months that I've really improved a lot. So I really want to do the exam and pass the qualification, and then just keep going with it and get the next level in a year or two. We'll see. It will help if I can get a job where I'm speaking in Spanish too. That'll help a lot. And then I'll move on to Catalan. I do want to go back to Catalan. It's not like I'm going to ignore it. I definitely do want to. I definitely want to get used to, get much more proficient at Catalan, especially since my better half speaks a lot of Catalan. So I want to be able to understand what she's saying. It's kind of interesting too, because I said before I had my maternal grandmother was German, but for some reason my mum is not bilingual. I don't know why. I think it's a real shame. I think maybe it's just because of post World War II attitudes in the UK. Maybe they would have frowned upon the idea of my grandmother speaking German, but there's nothing more natural. There's nothing more unnatural than a mother not talking to a child in their mother tongue, if you know what I mean. But as a thing too, my better half and I have had these conversations, and we're like, yeah, we want to raise the kid bilingual or trilingual, because obviously it's going to be Spanish in the mix as well. I think it's extremely important. It really sort of double down on that sort of multicultural sort of aspect. It's there, so don't let it go to waste. So yeah, it's and it's kind of a bit frustrating sometimes.
And then exit right.
Okay, we're almost on the way to Paris. We're going bus. We've got Strasbourg and Paris on the signs now, so we're not far away. Kind of made very good progress. Which is Strasbourg, a very important part of the board from a Fear of Jackal perspective.
Keep right.
So obviously when people over here see me, they're like, oh, native English speaker, we're going to speak English to you. partly because they want to improve their English, but also I think maybe there's a little bit of a fortunate stereotype in terms of British person can't speak a foreign language, which I definitely think there is. It's a stereotype. I think there is definitely some merit to it in terms of how true it is. There is some truth to it.
Keep left.
Not everybody, of course. That'd be very wrong to say. So, but there are definitely some people in the UK who have this kind of like superiority complex about them, and kind of be like, well, the rest of the world has to speak, or has to learn our language, so why should we bother learning theirs? Which is a real shame, because you're missing out on so much. The culture of the place connects so much to the language, and you get to see different ways of thinking. Not just you're learning about the culture of a different place, but languages will have different ways of thinking about certain concepts, which makes it very easy to get to see a different perspective on very basic things like telling the time or numbers and all this sort of thing. It's and also just like the way people act is also very connected with the language and how you phrase certain things. Yeah, you're missing out on a lot by not, I find there's a lot of cases too. It's like, well, I'm never going to live abroad, so why should I learn it? It's like, well, yeah, but you might go there on holiday, or even just out of personal interest, or it's just like as a challenge. Like, can you learn another language? I think it's a beautiful thing to do. And I will never ever, if it's from a perspective of examining a person on their ability on their language, then I'll be critical. But if it's just a random person in the street who's trying to speak in English, they'll get no hate from me whatsoever if they make mistakes or their accent isn't good or whatever. They're trying. I think that's extremely important. So I've had it too, because I'm not living in an extremely touristy area. If you go to like the center of Barcelona or something, you can get away with speaking a lot of English. But I'm not living in the center of Barcelona, so I can't, when I walk into shops and things, I cannot assume that people will speak Spanish or start that again. When I walk into shops, I cannot assume that people will be able to speak English to me. So I have to make the effort. I have to speak in Spanish or greet them in Catalan, then speak to them in Spanish. I can't do the whole conversation in Catalan yet. And I've actually had it, not to blow smoke up my own ass or anything, but I've actually had some interactions where I've spoken to people just on, in shops or whatnot, and they've asked me, they've said, oh, how long have you been living here? And I tell them, and they'll say, oh wow, your Spanish is really good. And it does really give you a lift, because then for every time that happens, there are times where you just have the worst moments when you're trying to speak a foreign language, and you make terrible mistakes, and they just look at you just like, what are you trying to say? I don't know what word you're trying to say. It really puts you out of your comfort zone. I think when you're living in the place, you're forced to speak it, and it's a really good thing. I know this is like a horrible thing to say. I don't want to be clipped out of context, but in some ways I don't like it when I go out with my better half, because I become very lazy with the language, because she's obviously bilingual, mother tongue and everything. So, when I go out, I'm very lazy. Then I'm like, okay, well, she can speak for me, because she won't make any mistakes. But when I'm on my own, it's like I have to speak. And I love the challenge of it, which is really neat. That's the thing, because obviously my better half and I we met in English, because she was doing an Erasmus in my country, and because we met in that language, and our relationship developed in that language. And then later on I started learning Spanish. We just don't speak Spanish to each other. We can maybe have one or two sentences in Spanish, but then after that, back to English again. Just something in our brain that just, when we see each other, we think English. It's not like from my perspective, it's not a laziness thing. It's not like, oh well, she knows more English than I know Spanish, I'll just speak to her in English. It's like, no, if I could speak to her in Spanish to learn more Spanish, I would. But it's just something in our in our brains that just tells us like this person we speak in English to them. Otherwise, it does feel like you're not speaking to a stranger. It does feel like you're speaking to somebody else sometimes. I only really talk to her in Spanish when I'm actually asking a question like, how do you say this in Spanish? Or what's the difference between these two things in Spanish, or whatever. So yeah, that kind of gave me the insight to the bilingual brain. You know, if I can't speak to my wife in Spanish, and she can't speak to me in Spanish, then that's how it feels to have somebody who's, you know, who has a friend that you only speak to them in Catalan. You can't speak to them in Spanish. So that's kind of how I rationalize that. But obviously, until you live in that society, or you're in a relationship with somebody where you talk to them, you know, it's very hard to maybe appreciate that. But it's something that's very, very fascinating. I said in the previous video, you know, I love watching YouTube videos about geography and history. I mean, I love also just learning bits and pieces about Spanish culture, if it's food or, you know, tourist guides around certain cities, or bits of history, even though I'm not going to remember the dates and things. It just, I find it all, you know, just trying to absorb as much as possible. It's really great. In fact, I'm learning the language more organically. It's great. And you do make mistakes, but those are part of the learning process. If you don't try, you don't make mistakes, and you actually learn from your mistakes, because you remember it's like, that was a really bad experience I had, but I'm going to learn from that. I'm not going to say that word again, or it's this word, not this word. You have to use this verb tense here, not there. You learn from it. If you just sit in your... It's kind of like anything, really. And again, I know it's very easy to say. It's much harder to do it. If you're sitting in your own little bubble, your little comfort zone, and don't actually expose yourself to different things, then you don't learn. Or you don't learn as much, or you don't improve. Just because something is hard, it doesn't mean it's not worth doing, right? It's kind of like that. Oh well, we've got a beautiful morning here over, I don't know where we are. I assume we're in northern France already. Don't really know, because I'm not looking at the map. I can't pick up, you know, I can't show you the map while I'm driving. I have to go into a different menu, which is a little bit annoying. I'm just going to keep going until we reach our destination, or until I have to stop for a rest, but we're going to get there in 2 hours, so yeah, I'm going to go there first and then rest. So that means we can't be far away from Paris, because if I remember correctly, the destination was north of Paris. So we're going to have to bypass the city. We've got some roadworks to go through, but that's all fine. We're not having to merge into one lane. They've devised a second lane for us. That's perfect. I've actually had, you know, a couple of moments where I've dreamt in Spanish. It was actually really nice when I've woken up, and I've woken up and really excited. And I was like, oh, that dream was in Spanish. I don't know what I said, but it was in Spanish. You can just tell, right? That's happened to me twice now. I've been very, very pleased about it. So there is definitely something in my brain that's working, which is great. So yeah, I do want to pick up German again in the future, but again, you know, Spanish is the priority right now, and then Catalan. So once I've got over those two, then maybe I'll return to German. Oh, what is going on? Oh, okay. Very strange situation here. AI doing derpy things, as per usual. That's fine. We'll get into the would this be the outside lane or the inside lane? I guess it's outside lane because it's not next to the central reservation. Dunno. Anyway. So yeah, that was a shock, obviously adjusting to seeing this bilingual society, but it's very fascinating. You're just going around with your eyes open all the time and seeing lots of different things. That being said, this English is creeping a lot into sort of daily Spanish life, unfortunately, because it's very, it's very hip and trendy to be able to speak English, and you see it on like in shop windows and things. There's signs in English, and I actually get kind of annoyed. I'm like, why is it in English? And my better half is like, oh, because it's cool and fashionable. It's like, yeah, but I'm not in England, right? I'm in Spain. I want to read Spanish things. They've taken loan words. Same in most languages. Like for example, in English we've got a German word, which is Schadenfreude. The reason why we use the German word is because it's a concept that you cannot explain. Well, you can explain it in English, but you haven't got a word for it. You have to explain it fully. If you don't know what Schadenfreude means, it's basically when it's an emotion where you feel happiness at somebody else's misfortune. What is this like tow truck doing? Seriously. There you go. Being derpy. So yeah, because Schadenfreude, unless I told you the whole sentence, we don't have a word for it in English. So there are some which are from English and being used in Spanish. And I hate them because they're normally English words that are being used incorrectly. So the ones I hate are ones like camping, which on the surface doesn't sound bad, but in Spanish and Catalan, camping is the place, not the activity. So they'll literally say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to spend the weekend at a camping," and you're just like, "No, it's called a campsite. Why don't you translate it as sitio de camping? No, you just call it camping." So that's very annoying. What other ones annoy me? Oh, footing. Oh my god. That's probably my least favorite one. We need a word in Spanish for when you run slowly. Footing. No, footing does not exist in English. It's jogging. Footing is a made-up word. The French use it as well, so I'll blame them. Maybe they did it first. The other one that really freaked me out was there's a Spanish expression which is de alto standing. When I first heard that, it was my parents-in-law who used it, and I thought I was having a dream, because I thought when I heard them say it, I thought it was like, are they speaking in English to me? Because I just heard the word standing, which is obviously an English word, right? And I was like, what on earth is going on? Are you speaking in English to me? Because they don't speak English. And I thought I was dreaming, and they were like, no, and they repeated it. And basically what it is, if something is de alto standing, it means it's like of high quality. But what they've basically done is they've taken the expression of a high standard from English and thought, right, okay, let's translate this literally and go, right, of, de, we'll get rid of the A, because we don't want that, high, alto, that's fine. We don't like this word standard, though. That doesn't sound very hip and trendy. There's another word in English which means the same thing, which is outstanding. Something's outstanding, it's amazing. Right, let's take away the out and just put alto and standing together. The alto standing. I was like, oh my god. I really need to send a strongly worded letter to the Real Academia Española and complain. So yeah, that's the thing in Spain. So there's this Royal Academy of the Spanish language, which dictates policy in terms of, if there's any spelling corrections, which doesn't really exist in Spanish because of the way the language works. But if there's any like new words which are introduced into the language, or even in Catalonia they have it, because recently they've had some changes in terms of how the accents work in Catalan. So you have these sort of governing bodies that make rulings about, the meanings of certain words, or when new vocabulary is introduced. And I guess if there was any spelling reforms and things back in the day, then they would be involved with that too. Whereas in English, that doesn't exist. Maybe in America there is. But at least in the UK, there's never been any spelling reform at all, as far as I'm aware. So everything's just law unto itself, which actually then makes it a real problem to learn as a language. Grammatically, English is very easy. I don't hear anyone saying otherwise. It's very easy. The verb conjugations are very, very easy. In that sense, you know, most European languages are much, much, much harder. You know, it doesn't matter if I want to say, you know, eat in Spanish. You know, it's not like in English where it's eat for everybody, apart from if it's he or she or it. It'll be is. Not is. It'll be eats. He eats rather than he eat. But in Spanish, if it's I or you, or he or she or we or they, it's different conjugation. The ending of the verb changes, and then when it's in the past, all of them change, and when it's in the future, all of them change. And it's very hard. But the good thing about Spanish compared to English is the pronunciation is very easy, because the sounds of the letters are consistent. There's no change at all. It's not like in English where you've got, I'm going to get this wrong now, there are 5 vowel letters, but I think it's at least 13, is it 13 or 17 vowel sounds, because when the vowels combine they make new sounds. There's also a thing called the schwa, which is I don't know much about it because I'm not a linguist, but it's a phonetic tool which basically suppresses the sound of the verb. Oh dear, the sound of the vowel. So as a perfect example, when you put the letter A in front of something to indicate there's only one of it, you don't say a, like a laptop or a table. You say a table, a computer. You don't say a like fully. That's the schwa, and it exists in words as well. In Spanish, this doesn't exist. So every time you see a vowel, it's pronounced the same way every single time, and it makes me wince when I don't blame them because they don't know the language, but it makes me wince when I hear English speakers trying to pronunciate any Spanish word, especially like things like Granada as an example, where every A is Granada, and they start saying Grenada and all this sort of thing, and it just makes me cringe, and I just want the the earth to swallow me whole. So something when I learned the language at the beginning, you know, we were taught very early on about how the alphabet works in Spanish, and I really make an effort to try and pronunciate things properly and not just default into English, you know, the English brain trying to pronunciate things. Sometimes it does happen where I see a word that's very similar to the word in English, and I'll mispronounce it because my brain just goes into English mode. But normally I really try my best to pronounce things properly. I don't have the accent. I don't think I ever will. So when people hear me talk, they know immediately that I'm not a native speaker, and I've messed up this reversing. Just have to do that again. To go further along. Now we've already arrived. See, time flies when you're giant shite. Yeah, I'll never have the accent, but I really do pride myself in, you know, trying to say the words correctly and not just, you know, having this really horrific, you know, pronunciation of words. You know, I really do try to make an effort. It's good though, because every time you read a word in Spanish, you can work out how it's pronounced, whereas if I see words in English that I don't know, I'm going to have to be guessing the pronunciation, which is not good in your mother tongue. Cool. So we made it all the way with only a couple of hiccups. A car crashing into the back of me, and then speeding fine. That's sweet. Oh, we leveled up. Look at that. Not that it matters, I've unlocked everything. So, I might go and take a rest, and then... Oh, there's a rest thing right around the corner. Perfect. Okay, we'll go there. We'll rest up, and then we'll probably do one more drive, maybe for about an hour or so.
Time to get the job done.
And then, I don't know how long we've been recording for, but I don't want to tab out to look, so I'm just going to have to guess. So if we do another like hour, hour and a half, I think that'll be decent. I just really enjoy speaking Spanish too. I find it really. There are some days where I just said before, you know, if I mentally I'm not having a very good day, I normally become way more introverted than I normally am, and I just don't want to talk to anybody. But then sometimes it's like, oh crap! Not only do I have to speak to them, I have to speak to them in another language. Oh no! So sometimes it's not ideal, but. It's really cool. You kind of, you know, you access a part of yourself that you didn't know, and I'm not saying my personality changes in the language necessarily, but I'm not at that stage yet. But it does access sort of a different part of you. It's kind of cool. It's just a nice challenge too. So that's cool. In Spanish, I've got an ongoing war with the subjunctive, which is a particular verb tense, which I think exists in English, but not really, because the verb conjugations are so basic in English, you don't notice it unless it's a very specific situation. So there are some verbs where it is the subjunctive, but you don't notice it. So it's things like, for example, if you said, I think this is an example of the subjunctive, if you say things like I wish, if you say things like I wish, I don't know, I wish I could drive, technically that's the subjunctive, but you only notice it with very specific verbs. So the subjunctive in Spanish, I don't even know if it exists in French or in German, I'm not sure. You normally use it for if you're indicating a want or a desire or a wish or that sort of thing, but you also use it in hypothetical situations. Or for example, I'm also learning to drive, funny enough, with this game. I'm learning the theory in Spanish. And in there, because they're describing everything from hypothetical perspectives, I'm going to take another rest, so then most of the drive will be in the daylight. So yeah, that's fine. That can work. We'll have the sunrise. So because it's talking about a lot of things in hypotheticals, because you don't know for real if it's going to happen, but you're imagining a situation is going to happen on the road, everything's written in subjunctive, which is a different verb tense, which then requires different conjugation, and it's just, it's the bane of my existence, but you get used to it. So where are we going to go? Take some cars to Poland. That is something we can do. Wouldn't be the longest drive either, which is maybe not a bad thing, given the time it is. It's like 11 PM my time. Ooh, we could go all the way down to Croatia. So we actually go through Germany and through Austria, which is kind of the route I was wanting to do anyway. And by the time we get through Austria, it'll probably be getting towards daylight. A little bit longer, but it won't be ridiculously long. And it means that I'm in the Balkans. And there won't be any border crossings to go through. So should we take some cars to Zagreb? Yeah, let's do it. And then we'll call it a night. I'll call it a day. Or whatever time it is you're watching this. I can't remember what I was talking about. That's fine, I got sidetracked. That's no problem. It'll come back to me.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go, dog. The game's really been behaving itself this time. I'm really happy about that.
Turn right. Turn right.
It's funny though when I'm looking at Spanish, the way I view Spanish is like a formal version of English, because obviously it has the Latin roots, as does English does. But English, I guess, is like a language of two sides. It has the Anglo-Saxon side, and then the side that came from French, i.e., the Latin side. And I find if I don't know the word in Spanish, I just think to myself, well, what would be the formal English word? And a lot of the time, it's actually really similar to what the Spanish word would be. The Anglo-Saxon side of English, the Germanic side, is the more sort of colloquial form with like the phrasal verbs, the verbs which have, prepositions to change the verb meaning, like pick up means to like collect someone or something rather than literally to pick it up, or give up means to quit, and all this sort of thing. Where do we have to go and pick this up? Oh, it's right here. Oh, so it's not a car manufacturing plant, it's just some random factory or warehouse. We've got some cars here. So we're going towards Slovenia, but we're going on a slightly different route than we did last time, and that means that hopefully in the next episode we can actually do the West Balkans DLC, like I wanted to.
Drive safe.
I'll try, Doug. I intend to. 1,400 kilometers. So how much is that, about 900 miles, more or less? So we're going to do it. We'll do one rest stop, and then we'll probably make it there just before the next rest stop. So that's perfect. Oops, right. Let's go.
Right.
One of the things I did want to talk about though was culture shocks. You see it in the language, of course, but obviously when you're immersed in a culture, there will be differences with your home culture. Fortunately, because it is two European, we're talking about two European countries here. We're not talking about, I don't know, say the UK and Japan, which I can imagine would be very different in terms of culture. I don't even have to imagine, I know it, because some people have gone there and told me. But two European countries, they do have similar cultures, but there are some small things.
Go straight on.
In general, again, I'm stereotyping a little bit here, but I think a lot of it, there's some truth in it. There'll be people of all types in any type of culture or country. It's always going to be that way. But in general, I'd say that British people are way less expressive. Spanish people are more expressive. British people don't. There are some people who show their emotions. But I find it when British people reveal their emotions, it's a lot more, dramatic maybe. If you got a very angry British person, they are like really, 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 really angry. There's no like middle ground. Spanish people I find are a lot more direct by the way they talk to you and like the way they demand certain things. It's not like British where we're like incredibly polite, but like to the point of ridiculousness, where we apologize for everything. If I had, I don't know, a situation at work where I was the only one with the keys and I had to leave soon, I had to tell one of my colleagues to leave, because they'd be locked in otherwise. I'd be having to almost apologize to them, saying I'm really sorry, but I'm leaving soon. So would there be any chance that you could leave, kind of thing, and put lots of pleases and thank yous in there. Whereas I wouldn't be surprised if here they'd be like, you have to leave. It's a lot more blunt in that sense, which is the way the culture is, right? It's just a little bit different, a little bit more honest, a little bit more kind of like in your face, so to speak. But it's good because you know where people stand with you a bit more, rather than in the UK where everything's kind of hidden behind this veil of passive aggressiveness, which can be quite cool sometimes, and sarcasm as well. Spanish sarcasm when they are sarcastic, they're way more obvious. Whereas, you know, British people are quite famous for having this this deadpan, you know, emotionless type of sarcasm, which really annoys foreigners. My better half included. She gets very irate with me when I am sarcastic, but I'll do it in a way that seems incredibly serious, that I'm telling the truth. To which point she'll be looking at me going like, "What, really?" I'll be like, "No, I'm being sarcastic," and then, you know, I'll get told off. Yeah, I find also that, you know, British people do, you know, say sorry and, you know, please and thank you a lot more. I think again, a lot depends on the person, obviously. Whereas here, I think, you know, maybe you don't use the word thank you so much, but if someone's been really helpful to you, you'd probably say something like muy amable, which kind of means like very kind, and that's enough to, you know, to indicate that you're happy with like the customer service you've been given or whatever situation it is. Oh, let me in. Car, don't. Thank you. I thought we are gonna have a repeated incident of what happened earlier.
Then exit right.
Okay, we're turning off. Where are we going? Going towards
Exit right.
Rheims? Is that how that's pronounced? I'm sorry, French people. The only one I find really funny is on the Fury of Dracula board. You got the town Nantes, and I've learned that it's pronounced Nantes. But now I'm saying this, I bet it's not pronounced Nantes now. I'm going to get told off. But, you know, you have all the Americans saying Nantes. Even in Spanish, it'll be Nantes, or however it's, what the name of the town is in Spanish. It's quite funny. And then there's just me sitting like, I think it's pronounced Nantes, but I'm not sure. It makes me doubt everything. It's like, I'm sure it's Nantes. I don't trust myself now because everyone's saying Nantes, which doesn't sound very French, to be honest. So yeah, that's a bit of a shock. Also, again, generalizing, but Spanish people crave physical contact a lot more than British people do. Not with your better half or something, that's a different matter, but in just general day-to-day conversations, you know, Spanish people are a bit more kind of like touchy-feely in the sense that, you know, if you're talking to them, they might, you know, hold on to your arm if they, you know, if they're telling you an anecdote or something, they'll hold on to your arm while doing so, or, you know, this sort of thing. And as a British person who, you know, in our culture in general, we avoid physical contact at all costs. It can be a bit of a shock to the system. There was actually one moment where I was like, I need to become more Spanish. I need to embrace the culture a bit more. I say that as a TGV goes past. So I was like, right, I'm gonna try the whole physical contact thing. So try to have a conversation with somebody and then try and, like, you know, not hold on to them like in a romantic way, but kind of like, you know, try to express myself by, you know, touching their arm or whatever. It makes it sound really weird and creepy when I explain it like this, but it's just the way people act. And I tried it, and it felt the most unnatural thing ever, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. I just reverted back into my British shell. I was like, nah, I don't want any physical contact with anybody. When I say with anybody, I don't mean with my better half. I mean like in terms of like general people who I'm talking to, like just general friends or people in the street or whatever. And obviously here, like a lot of European countries, especially France and, you know, Mediterranean countries, you have to greet everybody. Well, not everybody, but, you know, you greet, you know, friends and family members or whatever with 2 kisses, 1 on each cheek, which again, you know, kind of, you know, catch you off guard a lot. At least it's not like in France. In France, I think you have to do it with men as well, like close male friends. You have to do it, which is not a problem. But I think there's like this hierarchy, I think, in French society where, you know, with men who you're like friends with, but not very, very close friends, you won't do la bise. You'll do like a hug or handshake or whatever. But then the minute that you do the la bise with them once, the double kiss with them once, you then have to remember that you've done la bise with them because you're now on kissing terms for the rest of your life. Which would stress me out in terms of like trying to remember who's on my kissing list, so to speak. But I have seen men here kiss each other as well. But it's normally like close family members who'll do it. But it's quite funny when the pandemic happened a few years ago, and obviously everybody here was kind of freaking out because Spanish culture is very much a case of, you know, going outside to socialize. It's a very big part of the culture, you know, walking around town, you know, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and it doesn't matter what night of the week it is, by the way, the bars will be full of people. And it's kind of like this, you know, after work thing of where you go and socialize, but it's not like in the UK where you go to the pub and you have quite a lot of drinks and then you go home. It's very much a case of like you just go have 1 or 2 drinks, tiny bit of food, and then you go home because dinner is much later here than it is in the UK, which in itself is a big culture shock. Oh, okay. I've got another incident. We've had nothing but incidents on the motorways we've been playing the game today. What's happened this time? I can't tell. Is that a fire or something? I don't know. Somebody was trapped in their car. Not sure. Anyway, so yeah, there's a whole thing about people going out and socializing a lot. Especially when the pandemic happened, you know, people were kind of freaking out. Like, oh, we're not going to be able to socialize. We can't go to Palms. They're closing all the restaurants. Blah 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 blah. And then meanwhile, I was just sitting there going, like, well, I was stuck indoors anyway. I was writing my PhD thesis at the time, so I was like, well, I'm stuck inside anyway, so nothing's going to change for me. And then it suddenly twigged. I was like, oh, I've got there's no obligation to kiss anybody anymore, and no obligation to hug or whatever. It's like, perfect. I can live with this. Can we have this pandemic forever? I joke, of course. That'd be horrible. But yeah, it's just funny how, you know, the different reaction to things. And obviously, yeah, that's another culture shock too. Like the way, you know, the eating timetable is very, very different. Here, it's a big lunch and very small dinner. Lunch is later; it's around 2, 3 o'clock, and then dinner can be any time between 8 and 10. We normally have our dinner at 8, which is considered very early by Spanish standards. A lot of people, it'd be pretty normal to have dinner at like 10 o'clock at night. But the dinner's very small. It'll be maybe the leftovers from lunch, or just bits of bread with tomato and cheese on top and all this sort of thing. It's not a heavy meal. It does make it quite difficult when you're going out with friends, because they'll say, we're going out for dinner. And I'll be like, oh, that sounds good. And then the British part of my brain will turn off, and the Spanish part of the brain will turn on. I'll suddenly realize, oh wait, when they say dinner, they mean like Spanish dinner, so that means we're not going to go to the restaurant until 10 p.m. So then it's midnight, and you're still in the restaurant, and you're just like, oh, yeah. Which is not what I normally want to be doing. When it's like midnight, I want to be at home, like cozy, and you know, either in bed already, or within walking distance to the bed if I get tired. I don't want to be thinking about, oh, I have to go out and I have to go to a restaurant or something. Speaking of nighttime, we've got yet another beautiful sunrise here in eastern France. There's even a little windmill on the. I was going to say wing. I've got wingspan in my head. There's a windmill on the hill in the distance. Just all these little details just make it just all feel a bit more real. I think I was also playing earlier on today. I was playing the American Truck Simulator, and the game functions in a very similar way to this. Obviously, the trucks look different and all this sort of thing, but I like it. But obviously, just I don't connect with it as much because obviously I'm not from that place. I'm not saying you have to be from a place to connect with something, but you know, I'm just driving along and I see the names of these towns in, I don't know, in Arizona or Colorado or whatever state it is. I'm driving through and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. It's not something that's familiar to me. I should do more research about American geography and all this sort of thing. I've actually watched quite a lot of videos about America in terms of, first about politics, but also in terms of city planning. Kind of a weird hobby to have, but I wouldn't call it a hobby, let's call it an interest. Watching videos about city planning, and mostly why American cities suck, unfortunately. They're not built, in terms of being pedestrian friendly and bicycle friendly. It's all very car centric societies, and it's very interesting when you see, some cities who are trying to renovate, and then you take Americans who come from Americans or Canadians, and then there's one I really like which is called Not Just Bikes. Yeah, I think that's correct. There's a guy from Canada who now lives in the Netherlands, and he does a lot of comparison videos between American and, let's say, North American and Canadian, transport infrastructure and city planning, and then European, especially Dutch, transport infrastructure and city planning and stuff, and it's very interesting to see. Especially, that's probably one thing that I think Spain doesn't do very well, is in Northern Europe there's a lot of cycling culture. Biking is very heavily promoted, which is great. And even in places like Finland and whatever, where even in winter it's very cold, kids still cycle to school and all this sort of thing. Well, that sunrise is so bright. It's very beautiful, but bloody hell, I even need sunglasses on playing the game. Should this be the thumbnail? It doesn't look very nice on the outside. It looks better on the inside. Do I take an inside picture, maybe? I now turned a corner. That's not going to work very well. That's right, we'll just keep going. Maybe take a photograph now, perhaps? Yeah, that'll be good. Let this truck beside me go in. Nope, never mind, he stopped. Right. Oh, this is beautiful. There's a little valley here. This is going to be the thumbnail. Yeah. Yeah, that's the stuff. What was I talking about? I was talking about culture shocks. I wasn't talking about culture shocks just now. I moved on to something else. Oh, yeah, biking and infrastructure and stuff. That's right. Yeah, so it's just there's this whole thing about, oh, you can't have bikes in Canada because it's too cold in the winters. Like, oh yeah, say that to all the Finnish kids who go cycling to school and stuff. But Spain doesn't have a lot of cycling infrastructure, unfortunately. Now it's starting to change. They are starting to renovate some of the cities to make them more pedestrian and biker friendly and less car friendly, which I think is definitely the way to go about it. I know it pisses off all the car drivers, but eventually people will adapt if you've got good public infrastructure, good public transport, and if driving a car is such a ball ache in the city, then people just won't do it. They'll learn over time that they can't do it. Or they can, or will be very inconvenient, so they'll find other ways of. And you'll always need cars in cities, right? Because you're going to have people who are transporting goods to shops and people who are traveling and they need a car. But you shouldn't need a car just to drive from one side of town to other, right? You should have the public infrastructure to do so. Or, I walk all the time. I mean, I'm lucky I live in the center of the town where I live, but it means, I can walk around, and it's, everything is really close by, There's a supermarket 2 minutes walk away, and a pharmacy 2 minutes walk away. And, kids walk to school, people walk to work. It's all very normal, and I think I can't imagine living in a society where that's not the case. Again, by living in different countries, you see that different perspective of way of doing things. And even if something's not completely perfect, you see it from the other side. Going to deviate topic slightly, but it is kind of related to that. It was seeing the difference, kind of, it's a culture shock, but also a difference in mentality and stuff between the UK and Spain in terms of politics, not in terms of, the political, I think there's political drama in every country. I'm not saying it in that sort of perspective, but in terms of political representation, because, again, my perspective of the UK is that the UK is not very representative in terms of its democracy. It has a first past the post voting system, which has a lot of flaws with it. It's not at all representative of the will of the population. A political party can win maybe 30 or 40% of the vote, but they get over 50% of the seats in the parliament, which means then by default they basically get 100% of the control. The system is designed to basically mean that coalition governments do not happen, and the whole idea is then you get strong and stable governments, which you don't have all this infighting between coalition partners. But then what has ended up happening in the UK is then you end up with two, very broad, political parties. You've got Conservatives, which are the traditional right-wing party, and then Labour, who are the traditional left-wing party, but they are what we call broad churches, which are these very, because they're having to capture all of the right-wing vote or all of the left-wing vote, depending which party it is. You have, people who are from the Conservative perspective, right? You're going to have people from the centre-right, and the centre and the centre-right in that party, but you're also going to have people who are much more right-wing. People who are incredibly right-wing will not be in the party because they'll be excluded for being too far too extreme. But the same with the left. It'll be the same. You have the centre-left, and then you'll have the more traditional socialist further left still within the party as well, and then the very very far left will be excluded. But then there is still infighting, right? Because there'll be infighting between these different factions. Who's controlling? If you've got a socialist in charge of the Labour Party, then all the centrists are not happy with it, and then you've got a centre-right leader of the Conservative Party, then all the far right don't like it either, which is just stupid. People are then affiliated with a political party, but they'll probably disagree with probably half of the people in the political party at least. And it's just that's not. Is that democracy? I don't think so. It'd be better if you have, okay, fine, if you have, as an example, a left-wing coalition between centre-left and socialists. Yeah, they'll still be fighting and things, but because they're in a coalition agreement, they have to compromise with each other. I think it induces more compromise. You have to form these governments, and just also the whole idea that one party can get, say, 35% of the vote and they get 100% of the control is just ridiculous. That's not the democratic system. Whereas in Spain, I see it from an outsider's perspective, where Spain has a national government and then it has regional governments. So every single region, like Catalonia or Aragon or Andalusia in the south or Madrid in the centre, they are called autonomous communities, where they have their own parliament, they have their own elections, so any regional issues are dealt with by the regional government. Education, for example, the education system in Catalonia is completely handled by the Catalan government, not by the national government of Spain, and this sort of thing. And then on top of that, you've got then inside each autonomous community, you're going to have autonomous region, you'll have provinces and all this sort of stuff. And I've heard some people here complain, oh, there's too much, almost not too much democracy, but they'll view it like, oh, there's too much bureaucracy, there's too much red tape, and there's just too many layers of government, and it should become more simple. And I'm viewing it from the other side, like, I would dream for the UK to have this situation where it has this more kind of like federal system, where it's way more, the democracy is more regional. I mean, I'm not saying Spain's perfect, I'm not saying that, but it's going in the direction that I want the UK to go in. I don't want them to recede, I want them to keep going and becoming more representative. And they're using a proportional representation system of voting, so Parliament not perfectly but better reflects the will of the voting public. Because in the UK, for example, it's ridiculous. You got, England doesn't even have a parliament. The British Parliament is the English Parliament, which is ridiculous. So then, you've got Scottish politicians in the British Parliament who are voting on issues that only affect England. Scotland has its own parliament, which I'm obviously happy with, but England is such a, not geographically, but it is quite a large country geographically, but also in terms of population, it's massive. And somebody who's in, as an example, the northeast of England, a politician who is just sitting in London, what do they know about people who live in the northeast of England, as an example? It would be much better if England was, not geographically, but politically, was divided into, different regions which would have their own governments. But they're doing it a little bit. There are some cities that have mayors,
Keep left.
and there are some regions that have mayors, but it's not the same. It's not the same as a full parliament, which I really want, England to go to that system, but I don't think it'll ever happen. I don't know if there's going to be political will for it, because it benefits both of the big political parties not to have proportional representation, because they won't lose their vote share necessarily, but they'll lose, the number of seats they'll have in Parliament, which obviously they'll be very against doing, right? So I don't know if it will ever happen. I hope it does. It looks like the government's going to change in the UK. It's currently Conservative. It looks like it's going to change to a Labour government, and the election gets held at some point in 2024. So I hope that Labour, puts their foot down and is willing to give up a little bit of its vote share and a little bit of its representation in Parliament in order to have a more, a better functioning democracy and have something that's more representative. But we shall see if they actually do it or not. We shall see. There's also, seeing differences in terms of everything's all relative. That's the thing. I come at it from the British perspective, but then a Spanish person or a Catalan person or whoever would have complaints about the system here, and those complaints may well be very valid. It's just you see things from a different perspective, and you see positives that maybe somebody else doesn't see about their own system, or they see negatives that they don't see. It's very interesting.
Keep left.
Okay, where are we anyway? We're not in. Oh, there's a beautiful cathedral off on the horizon. I don't know where we. Oh, we're in Strasbourg. Okay, we're bypassing Strasbourg right now. Some industry in the foreground, and then we've got some cathedrals and things in the background. Hopefully they've been modelled to actually look like the real Strasbourg. I'll have to have a look. Normally they do put quite a lot of detail, especially into the newer parts of the map. They try to make them look way more accurate. And the old parts of this map really need to be refurbished, but they're slowly getting there. So as an example, with again, it's getting a bit political, but it's just I'm not condemning or condoning one way or the other. It's just differences, right? You see, everyone's valid. Everyone can have their own opinions on things, but when we had the pandemic response, as an example, I was able to see it from two perspectives. I was obviously living here in Spain, so I was under the jurisdiction of whatever the national government of Spain was doing in terms of its COVID policy, and then later it became a regional policy. I don't know. It depends on your perspective. Either if you like the government and you're saying that the government made the right decision to delegate COVID responsibility to the regional governments. If you didn't like the governments, then you didn't like the incumbent government, then you would say that they were washing their hands of the responsibility of undertaking COVID policy and giving it to the regional, autonomous community governments. It depends on what you're thinking. We're now in Germany. We've just crossed the border. And then we lag. The latency is different here in Germany. I'm only joking. Oh, we were just crossing a river. What's that river that then forms the border between France and Germany? I'll have to look it up. Yeah, so I was able to see it, even though with the language barrier I didn't understand everything, but I was living in Spain, right? So whatever the governments here decided in terms of COVID policy, I was directly affected by it. Whereas, you know, I was still able to follow all the news in the UK. And it was just really interesting. People here were not happy about certain ways that they were doing things. But from my perspective, you know, watching how the British were doing it, I was absolutely appalled at how the British were doing it. And, you know, and again, it's all relative, but from the British perspective, I was really happy that I was living in Spain during the pandemic and I wasn't stuck in the UK. The UK was yo-yoing between full lockdown and full liberty, basically, for the best part of 18 months, and that, you know, would really take a toll on people, and going back to mental health and things, constantly, you know, you're locked up for 3 months, and then you're free for 3 months, and you're locked up for 3 months. Whereas here, there's a lot more sort of like balanced approach. There was a moment where I was just talking to, you know, my best friends back in Scotland, and I just made this was probably like January of 20. I don't know, like January of 2021, something like that. I just made a completely off the cuff comment, not even thinking about it, and they were like, "Oh, what have you been doing today?" And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I had work to do. I went to go and get a haircut." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I went to go and get a haircut." And they were shocked by this because obviously they were under full lockdown and none of them had haircuts for about 6 months or whatever it was at that time, or 6 months. I was like, "Yeah, no, everything's open. You have to go in with a mask and everything, but you can still go and get a haircut." Yeah, it's just, again, it's all just relative, right? When you can experience different sides of something, you get to view things in a different way. It's just interesting. I think, you know, I'm not, you know, as I said, I'm proud of where I come from, but never in a, you know, I'm proud of where I'm living now, but I'm not in a nationalistic sense where I'm like, yeah, my country is never wrong. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. I think by the opposite, if you're proud of where you come from, I think you should be the first to admit when your country does something wrong. Blind patriotism is fine. Blind patriotism is not. That's my feeling on it. Oh, and we've got a Mini Cooper ahead who tried to overtake, didn't overtake its speed, and now we've got an AI car going the opposite way, and instead of pulling in, now the Mini pulls in front of me. Of course it does. I haven't had that recently because I've been driving on motorways most of the time, but yeah, in these single carriageways, there's quite a lot of derpy behaviour, so this is going to be fun. As we're driving through the west of Germany right now, hopefully we'll get onto the Autobahn fairly soon. Can I overtake this lorry? Oh, there's a blind summit up ahead I really don't want to overtake, so we're just going to take it slow. We've got an Autobahn coming up, so I'm not going to risk it for the sake of risking it. I think sometimes the AI try to overtake, but they don't actually put their foot down. Or they'll do it on a blind summit or something. Oh, lovely. Scenery, we've got a lot of sunflowers off to the right. It's like a wheat field to the left. Just meandering through the West German countryside. But I see an Autobahn, so we'll be able to put our foot down very soon. How long have I got until a rest stop? 2 hours, that's not very long. Okay. We have to complete the journey in the dark, unfortunately. Unless I rest twice. We'll see. The other culture shock that I found here, which is quite funny, is as a British person, I don't, also maybe just my character too, I don't often show enthusiasm for things. Or if I do, you know, the enthusiasm will be very intrinsic, but if you were looking at me, you might not think I'm enthusiastic. Or maybe you think my enthusiasm is being suppressed for some reason. Whereas here, something I've kind of realized is if you go around to someone's house, and if
Turn right.
Okay, we'll do. Where are we off to? We're off to Stuttgart. Alright, we're not going to Zurich, that's why. If somebody cooks for you, you have to show with a lot of enthusiasm that you like the food. See, my way of eating is very simple. If I'm eating everything on my plate, it means I like it. If I'm playing with the food, or if I've left a lot of it, it means I don't like it. But I've had it where, you know, I've been with, you know, my wife's family, and they ask me like, do you like the food? And me, in my British way, I'll just be like, oh yeah, see, right. And they don't take my word at face value. They don't pay attention to my plate that I'm eating all the food, right? They don't think I'm enjoying it, and then they'll ask my wife with quite a lot of concern, like, is he enjoying it? Does he like the food? I think now again it's kind of like it's a culture shock for them too. I think they're getting used to it. But obviously, the fact I'm here, I'm the one who's having to adjust, right? But it's fun. It's you know, a different way of doing things. Right, oopsie daisy. Yeah. My guy's yawning, so I need to go and find a rest stop. Right, come on, truck. Go past. Quick. There we go. So we're heading now towards Munich, basically. I wonder if we'll see the Allianz Arena. I can't remember, did we see that in the last episode, or was that because I saw it with my friend? I think with my friend I saw the Allianz Arena, which is the football stadium outside of Munich. I saw it maybe 3 times in one session. We just kept driving backwards and forwards. Ah, this is Stuttgart. Very industrial. We're in the industrial heartland of Germany. We've got like Cologne and Stuttgart and all this. Keep left. Will do, sunshine. And we got the airport here as well, so good to see signs for Flughafen. Yeah, my guy, I know you're tired. Just as soon as I find a rest stop, we'll pull in, okay? Oh, okay, I need to get into the inner lane. I've somehow run out of things to talk about. I don't know how that happened. I guess compared to the last session, I wasn't stressing out about the trailer I had, so maybe that's why I've just been able to talk more freely.
Keep left.
If there was anything from, you know, if you're watching this from a different country, if you agree with some of the culture shocks I've said, then you can let me know if there's any culture shocks that you've experienced going to other countries, or anything that's a little bit unusual about your home country. Then I don't need to turn off. And feel free to leave a comment, and I'll try and talk about it in the next episode. Oh, that's another thing. I've just seen the road sign, and that made me think of it. Road signs are different. So here in Germany, the way it works, assuming this game is accurate, is if you've got a road sign which tells you like 3 cities in the distance that you're driving towards, they'll show the number of kilometers, or in the UK miles. But the way it's done is in Germany it goes from the bottom up, so the closest city's at the bottom and the furthest away city's at the top. If I remember correctly, in the UK, I think it's the other way around. I'm more than sure in the UK it goes top to bottom, and the bottom one is further away. Yes, it is. The bottom city is furthest away. Now in Spain, I don't remember. I haven't clearly paid attention enough when I've been driving around. So yeah, do let me know if you want in the comments below. In your country, how are the road signs done? Do you have the closest city at the top of the road sign, and it increases in distance going down, or is it the other way around? I'm lagging again. Okay, this is very weird. It's very similar to the previous session, where it just hangs for a few seconds, but it's not like constant lag. But I can cope with this though. It's been really smooth for most of the way, so you know, if I'm doing like a 3-hour video, and this is the amount of lag that I'm getting, I'm okay with it. I really need to find a rest stop. This is ridiculous. Come on, Autobahn. Don't let me down. We're not going towards Zurich, we're cutting across further. We're going to keep going across southern Germany and then cut down through Austria. Which is kind of the route I wanted to do in the first place when I was going from Innsbruck, so yeah, that kind of worked out. Oh, is that a rest stop I see ahead? Yeah, buddy, that's what it is. So the landscape's going to change a lot. This is quite flat. There are some rolling hills and things, but as we go further and further south, it's going to become a little bit more mountainous, more hilly. North of Germany is very flat. Part of the Great, was it North European Plain? Is that what it's called? Stretching all the way from, it's all the way from Strasbourg, right? All the way up through the Netherlands and up towards Moscow.
Okay, let's find a new route.
Just
go straight on.
Do I need to get fuel? No, I don't. So we just go and get a rest.
Recomputing. Turn right.
I also realized I watched back the previous episode just to make sure that audio quality was okay and it wasn't too laggy and all this sort of thing. I realized when I got to the music section, I was like, ooh, I didn't really explain a lot of those things very well. I was just naming bands. I wasn't actually talking much. But oh well. Like in terms of a very analytical perspective. But actually, since I recorded that video, I said I don't listen to much rock. I have actually started going back and listening to. I mentioned Slash in that video. It was my second musical epiphany after Shinedown. I like the musician that sort of showed me what a guitar could do in that sense. I've actually been watching and listening to quite a bit of Slash over the last couple of weeks. Going back to there's an album he did called World on Fire, which I think is just really, really cool. I like all of his stuff, but I definitely connected a lot more with that album compared to the others. Really cool music on it, and just like the lyrics, you know, the sort of the stories that Miles Kennedy was creating in his lyrics there. Because in the other band, Alter Bridge, that I spoke about, Miles Kennedy does all the lyrics for that as well as playing guitar. He a lot of those lyrics are a lot more sort of personal, based upon emotions that he's been feeling. There's a whole, the third album, AB3, is all about his sort of his doubts about religion. His story is quite interesting, actually. He was brought up as a Christian Scientist, and his biological father died when he was 3 from appendicitis, because obviously he refused medical treatment. And I think an event like that would really sort of like sow the seeds in terms of like making you doubt things a little bit. But he still lived, you know, he still brought up religious for the rest of his, you know, childhood and adolescence. It was then when AB3 came out, sort of like the year or two prior to that, that was really when he was having like a lot of doubts about, you know, what sort of role religion was playing in his life, and you know,
keep left.
Is it the thing for him, and all this sort of thing. So you know, that whole album documents a lot of those thoughts, and it makes it a very dark record to listen to. But there's a lot of personal connection there between the lyricist, the person who's singing, but also the lyrics, right? So it feels a lot more real. But obviously with him doing Alter Bridge and then having to write for the band he has with Slash as well, he can't just keep banging the same drum and doing a lot of like personal songs about his own personal feelings. He has to sort of find different inspirations and find different things to talk about. So that World on Fire album is a lot more sort of storytelling type songwriting, where he's talking about characters that have inspired him. The Allianz Arena, we're just passing it now. It's dark, so you can't see it very well, but that little, if you're watching on the screen, there's like a little white bowl off to the side. That's the Allianz Arena. I've actually been to it not long after it opened, actually. I went in 2007, and yeah, really impressive stadium to see. And it lights up on the outside if the national team are playing there, or if Bayern Munich are playing, or another team is playing there. The colours on the outside are different. Pretty neat. Anyway, so he's having to write, having to get inspiration from different things. So there's a really cool song on that album called Shadow Life, which is all about one of the main characters from Mad Men, which is a TV series. He did probably one of the best songs on the album. It's called Beneath the Savage Sun, which is he got inspired. He went and played a gig in South Africa, and when they were there, they went out and they were talking to people there who protect the elephants from poaching, and they actually went out to meet the elephants out in the wild, and it really inspired Miles in terms of the emotional connection he had with the animal and the intelligence that it has. So much so that actually afterwards he got tattoos on his chest of elephant heads facing towards each other. And he was really sort of inspired by that, that trip and that experience. And the song Beneath the Savage Sun is basically written from the perspective of an elephant whose mate has just been poached. And he talks about the ivory lie and all this sort of things. It's a very, like, musically a very cool track, but also just when you dive into the lyrics behind it too, it's he's a very good songwriter in that sense. With Alter Bridge, he's still in most of the more recent albums. He still deals with a lot more with like stuff inside him and the way he views certain things. Especially with Alter Bridge now, it's become a little bit lighter. Recently, it's not been as dark as it used to be. The last couple of records have been a little bit more inspirational. But I think with Alter Bridge's music, there's always been that sort of mixture of the light and the dark. It's kind of similar to Shinedown, actually, which is kind of funny because that's where the word white Shinedown, that other band I spoke about before.
Keep left.
I would if this car lets me. It's why they're called Shinedown. I'll come back onto that in a minute. But there's always that sort of light and dark in the lyrics, where even if they are talking about something that's quite something about something that's tormenting them emotionally, or something as deep as in terms of like your religious beliefs, sort of like the scales falling from your eyes when you kind of realize that everything you knew or you thought you knew up to that point is maybe not how it seems, and whatever. They do inject in the lyrics elements of hope and optimism, which is, I think, really a beautiful mix. I mean, Shinedown's the same, and that's why the story of why Shinedown is called Shinedown. It was from when they were trying to think of, this is the very, very early days of the band, when they tried to think of a name for it. They were really struggling with names, and at the time, Brent Smith, who's the founder of the band and lead singer, and probably one of the most powerful voices. I think Miles Kennedy's voice is probably the most versatile. But Brent Smith's probably the most powerful. But yeah, he didn't have a lot of money at the time. I think if I remember the story correctly, he was giving a wedding. Him and his then girlfriend at the time were having to give a wedding gift to a friend, but they couldn't really afford much. But I think the girlfriend was an artist, so she painted something for them, and the couple who they gave the painting to put up in their house, and somebody must have made a comment about, oh, that'd be quite cool if you could put a light over the painting so it would shine down on it. And then it must have been then a few days later the friend called them up and was like, well, why don't you call your band Shine Down? And then it kind of stuck. But it's kind of, the sort of the yin and yang. Sometimes you shine, sometimes you're down, but you're both, it's two sides of the same person.
Then turn right.
Alter Bridge is different, actually. The reason why it's called Alter Bridge, there was the guitarist who helped form the band. He grew up, I think, during his teenage years in Detroit, if I remember the story correctly. And there's actually, Alter Bridge is a real bridge in Detroit, but it's a bridge that separates two neighborhoods. When they were kids, because I think Detroit, unfortunately, because of the deindustrialization stuff, is quite a deprived city in places. And so yeah, so the guitarist Mark Tremonti lived in one neighborhood, and basically the boundary of where he was able to go with his friends safely was up until the Alter Bridge, and he was told unknown certain terms to cross into the other neighborhood. So kind of the bridge sort of marked this sort of physically in his life a boundary he wasn't able to cross, which then made sense for the band, because the 3 of the 4 members of Alter Bridge were in Creed, who were a really famous band in America in the 1990s. When I say famous, like they were selling like millions and millions and millions of records. Not very popular in Europe, not unpopular in that sense. It's not like they were disliked or anything, but they weren't very well known in Europe, because I think they didn't tour in Europe very much. Whereas in America they were huge. Obviously, with more popularity comes more hate, right? It's always the way. And basically, yeah, the band broke up, and the 3 members, the singer left Creed, and the 3 remaining members were left, and they enjoyed making music together, so they wanted to keep playing together, but they wanted to forge like a new future. Not playing Creed songs, they wanted to make their own material, go in a different direction musically. So Alter Bridge seemed a perfect word for it, right? This physical and also now, metaphorical barrier that they have to cross. It's kind of interesting then with Alter Bridge, because of the sort of the backlash from the Creed split up, at the beginning the Americans didn't really give them a chance, and they called them Creed 2.0 and all this sort of thing, and they released their first record, which in today's perspective sold quite a lot of records. I think it sold like 500,000 records in America, which is very, very successful, but compared to Creed that was nothing. And the record company who they signed with dropped them and all this sort of thing, so it's a very sticky situation. It's a horrible mess to be in, and they took on a massive debt to basically buy themselves out of their not recording contract, but the contract they had with the recording, or with the publishing company and whatnot. And now after 20 years of hard work, they've paid it off. But in Europe, where Creed wasn't really known, they were able to really make a name for themselves. And yeah, in the UK they're extremely popular. When they go to London, they can go to the O2 Arena, which has like, I think, 20,000 people where it can fit, which is very good, for a rock band. It's not just a rock band; it's a rock metal band. Really, it has quite a lot of heavy tendencies to it. It's kind of, like I said in the previous, it's like this beautiful blend of melodic rock, but also with that sort of gritty metallic edge mixed in as well. And then you've got a little bit of jazziness from Miles, goes slowly, blending in a little bit of blues and all that sort of stuff. but the foundation of the band is melody and rock. You know, the only other bands I would sell out, you know, bigger venues than that nowadays would be, you know, historically famous bands like Guns N' Roses or Iron Maiden or Foo Fighters. But from the next, you know, rung down, you know, Alter Bridge are probably one of the biggest out there, and you know, in terms of the European, when they come over to tour in Europe. Now they're starting to get the recognition in Europe, in America that they deserve. I don't know if I can turn off here. No, I can't. So I don't know where we are, but there's a lot of, I can see the shadows of mountains up ahead. So I think we might be approaching the Alps. Can I go in here? Please don't send me back. I've had some real bad luck with toll booths recently. Oh great. I clipped toll booth sort of concrete slab as I was going in. Oh no. Oh no. Can I not go through this one? Ah. I did not see the sign above. This is not for lorries. Oh, this is embarrassing. So which one can I go in then? The one on the far right, I think? Oh, to be fair, the GPS actually did tell me to go into the far right one. I just didn't listen to it because... That's embarrassing. Never mind, you didn't see that. You've all fallen asleep by now anyway. So I've been listening to quite a lot of Slash and just, you know, improvisation and stuff. It's really nice. And yeah, for that Wild on Fire album, there's just some really beautiful songs in there. Just the melodies get stuck in your head, which is great. I haven't listened to a lot of new stuff lately. I've been going back to try and listen to things that I've just forgotten existed. Like another band is Rival Sons, which I should listen to a bit more. I was talking about Big Reg, but yeah, Rival Sons are. I don't know where they're from. Are they Canadian? I've got a suspicion they're Canadian, but I might be very wrong with that. They're definitely North American anyway, and they're kind of like one of these, you know, bluesy rock type of bands. So it's not as heavy as Alter Bridge, but I've seen them live once, and just the way the singer is just on another planet in terms of just like the way he interacts with the audience, and it's just there's so much soul and emotion with the way he sings and just the way he's moving around the stage. It's awesome. Very cool band. Oh, am I having to turn off here? This is going to be potentially very awkward if I don't get past this lorry. Yeah, I know I'm speeding. I have to. Okay.
Keep right, and then exit right.
Alright, we'll do. Oh,
Never mind. I'll find a new route.
balls. I went the wrong way. You said keep right. So I went too early. I should have read the GPS. Right, okay. How long is this diversion going to take? If that's the case, I might take a different route rather than going back on myself. It depends on how soon I can... yeah, I don't know why, I didn't see enough. I knew there was a turn off that was sooner. Oh, cool. I can just turn around up here. Perfect. Okay, that's great. It's fine. Nobody will see this anyway, because nobody will be watching by now. That's perfect. Loop here that we can do.
Keep right, and then exit right.
Oh, we kept going this way. We go to Italy. Interesting. Yeah.
Exit right.
We'll do, sunshine.
ready to turn right. Turn right.
Definitely in and amongst the mountains now. I just see nothing but mountains everywhere. That's all I can see though. We're away from the cities. Just the stars and the mountains, nothing else.
Get ready to turn right. Turn right.
Oh well. That detour was not too bad. And we've got the sunrise. Beautiful. Not yet, it's just there's a little glow of light on the horizon. What time is it now? 4 AM. That's the other thing too, talking about culture shocks. I mean, obviously, aware of it's not a shock. Like I know how geography works, but just in terms of like living in a place that's further south. Obviously, in Scotland, I was very lucky with the fact that now what do I need to turn off? I need to get this correct. Oh, Slovenia. Okay, I can read German. Right, that will do.
Keep right.
Nice. Oh, and I lag. It definitely doesn't like slip roads. Yeah, obviously, you know, living in a place that's further south in Scotland, I was very blessed to have incredibly long summers. In the sense, you know, daylight lasted for a very long time, and you know, I was living so far north. There's lag again. This way? I don't know. I don't think I'm supposed to get into the right hand lane there. I think this is correct. We're crossing the border now. Yep. 12 years. You see, that's more like it. Oh, maybe we're in Austria now. No, we can't be. They would say Austria on the road signs rather than Slovenia. Maybe we're in Slovenia then. Wherever we are, it's beautiful. We're going to cut through a tunnel here, or cut through a mountain here. What was I saying before I got rudely into? Oh yeah, so the whole geography thing. Yeah, you know, so far north in Scotland, you know, you can, in the height of summer, assuming there's good weather, you can. I was able to walk around, you know, my house at 2, 3 a.m. with no lights on. There'd be just enough residual light, even if the sun had gone down. There'd be enough residual light that you'd be able to walk around with no problem. If you're driving, you'd have to have lights on, obviously, but for safety and for everyone else to see you. But yeah, walking around, no problem. Whereas obviously here in Spain, the summer days are quite short, but obviously for rightly so, given it's so hot, you need the night. Otherwise, it'd be pretty difficult to deal with. But then obviously, conversely, the winters in Scotland are very hard. You know, I'd be when I was a kid, I'd be getting picked up by the school bus at,
Keep left.
I don't know, say 8 a.m., 8:15, and it'll be complete darkness. And then arriving home from school at 4:30ish, 4:20, 4:30, complete darkness. Game isn't happy now. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's a timing thing, because it definitely wasn't like this at the beginning of the playthrough. Maybe after a little bit of time, maybe computer, or maybe it's just my computer. It's not the game. Maybe my computer's getting a bit stressed. I'm not sure. There's nothing running apart from OBS in this. But anyway, yeah. So I'd be going, going to school in the dark, arriving home in the dark. Or same if you're working. Worse if you're working, because you obviously arrive home later. Whereas here, I notice it more in the summer rather than the winter. I do like those long summer days. Yeah, it's just obviously with the climate difference too, it's more bearable in Scotland. If you're trying to do it in Spain, where it's getting to like 40 degrees Celsius. Sorry, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. 40 degrees Celsius in the summer. If not more, then yeah, you really need the nighttime. You need the sun to disappear as soon as possible. How far do we have to go? Oh, only 200 kilometers, so almost there. I'll make it there before the break. So we've made it through the Alps. Unfortunately, we didn't see much of it because of the nighttime, but that's okay. We can easily go back in the other direction during the daytime, and we'll see it. Yeah, given I've run out of things to talk about at the moment, and it's 12:15 my time, I think we'll call it quits after this. But hopefully you've enjoyed the ride, and hopefully my poor driving at times hasn't been too cringy, and hopefully the lag hasn't been too bad. I will watch this back to see what it's like. Obviously, if it's been uploaded, then the lag can't be that bad. But yeah, it gets stuck at times. I'm not sure why that is. The American one doesn't seem to do it. Maybe I need to reinstall ETS2. As I said, my computer's not the most powerful. It's not a potato, but it's not it's not the most powerful either. So it's maybe just struggling to cope. Maybe I should just turn down my graphics a little bit. But I don't think that would actually make the difference. I'm not sure. Because it's not constant lag. You know what I mean? If it was constantly lagging, then I'd be like, okay. I mean, maybe if I'm looking at it now, maybe I could drop the graphics a bit to improve the frame rate. A little bit. So I'm feeling it now, it's starting to lag a little bit. But
Keep left.
I'm not sure, why it is. If it's just getting stuck at certain parts, that doesn't seem to be like a... I don't know. I don't know how computers work. If it's like in the middle of a town or something, we're having to load lots of assets, that wouldn't surprise me. Or if it's towards like a traffic spawn point, that wouldn't surprise me. But it's not constant, like dropping 50% of frames. It's just occasionally. See, now it's running smoothly just now, so I don't know. But yeah, if need be, I'll switch over to ATS, the American version, if that's running better. Or I might have to uninstall and reinstall this, perhaps. We'll see. But hopefully it's been enjoyable. I don't need to turn right, or not. I don't need to go into the right-hand lane because it's all merging anyway. And hopefully this video has kept you company, or relaxed you, or intrigued you, or interested you, or pissed you off. I don't know, whatever you wanted from it. I hope it's fulfilled your expectations. I had the idea in my head I was going to overtake there, but the lorry in front has actually put its foot down, so no need. We're going to Croatia, so we're going to cross the border fairly soon. Oh, just the way the sun is just hitting those pylons. It's just so cool. You actually get proper rays of light rather than just a blanket, you know, just like a constant light everywhere. It just changes the way everything looks and all the shadows and everything. It's so good. It was funny, I had somebody from the Free of Jack community watch the previous video and he asked me, he's like, why would anybody want to play this game rather than be a real trucker? AI? What are you doing? Why are you all pulling into the inner lane? You don't have to. Oh, are they turning off? Is that why? Oops. Are they wanting to turn off? Oh, they're wanting to turn off. Oh my days. Okay. Nice. It had somebody from the community say to me, why would anybody want to play this game rather than be a real trucker? And I was like, well, I don't know. You get all the perks of the job rather than having to deal with all the downsides. In terms of, you know, the sedentary lifestyle. Not having to be away from your family for days on end potentially, or hours and hours and hours. If you crash, there are no fatal consequences in this game. So yeah, here we go. We're approaching the border with Croatia.
Right, and then exit right.
I don't think there's going to be any exiting, mate. And I'll just follow that other lorry up ahead. So this is one of the other border crossings, which Croatia is part of Schengen, so there is a border, but it basically doesn't exist. I'm just going to say my computer's tired. That's going to be my excuse. I'm tired and the computer's tired, that's why it's lagging. It's so inconsistent, that's the weird thing about it, I don't know. I can't monitor what my CPU and GPU and stuff is doing while I'm in the game. The sooner I get a 2-monitor setup, the better. I can't wait to, when I'm moving flat, I'm going to have, you know, my laptop monitor and have a standalone monitor next to it. I really miss having 2 monitors. I can actually have OBS and the game open at the same time, so I can actually watch what it's doing. That's going to just be so handy. I got too spoiled when I was doing my my doctorate, having 3. I had a moment in time where I had 3 monitors. You just get spoiled, and you just get too used to having so many monitors, and being able to have multiple things open and dragging stuff across, and being able to read something and write about it at the same time, rather than having to have it squash onto one screen and flicking back and forth. When you go back to one screen, it sucks. First world problems, I know, but see, so I'm just passing now, that would be the old border control, but obviously it doesn't exist. You can just drive all the way through. How far have we got to go? 70 kilometers. Another cool 70k in the bank. Assuming this lorry ahead of me actually goes at some point. There is quite a lot of traffic though. Oh cool, after this brown car I can go. Oh, we just saw a sign for Mariporo, that's where we went the last time. Or Maribor, I can't remember if it's a P or a B. Oops. We're not going there today. We're not going to Zagreb? Are we going to Zagreb? We are going to Zagreb, but that road for Zagreb we're not going on, so it must be a different part. We're not going to the south of Zagreb, we must be going around the other way then. Yeah, this is a road I haven't driven on either. Oh, and it's lagging. Ooh dear. Yeah, I might have to switch to ATS. This is a little bit of a shame, but since I've tried to record this 3 times, I think, unless it's unbearable, I'm gonna upload it. If most of the video is okay, then that's fine.
Keep left.
Maybe there's something happening on my PC that I can't see. Maybe there's another application that's trying to open and do stuff without my permission. I mean, today is Monday, so maybe my antivirus that normally runs on a Monday is just started up.
Keep left.
That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah, because this is... It might be that. I might have to change the time that it runs or something so it runs during the day when I'm not recording. See, now it's fine. Don't know. Maybe it's the game loading assets, maybe it's some other application running in the background. It's just hogging all the computing power, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway. So what I can try and do, if I don't do any more driving sessions until next time I record, we can try and do the West Balkans again. We can try and do that trip to Romania like we did in the recording that was lost forever.
Keep right.
It's actually really cool then going off onto the Black Sea coast. Even though that's not from the new DLC. It was in the old DLC because they released the East Balkans and Turkey together. I think they called it Road to the Black Sea. So that was all released before. But it's not an area of the map that I've investigated very much. I have been down to Turkey and things, but it was Romania I haven't investigated apart from just driving through it on the way to Turkey, and same with Bulgaria. So oh, that's a bridge and a half. Is that a bridge we're crossing? Certainly looks like it. I suddenly realised that in the previous episode I said suspension bridge at one point, but then I thought about it afterwards. Like, no, it's not a suspension bridge. And I looked up what type of bridge it was, but now I can't remember what type of bridge it was we crossed. It's a bridge like this. This is not a suspension bridge. But now I can't remember what it's actually called. Oh well, I'll have to look it up and then I'll tell you in the next episode. that was information that went into my brain and then promptly disappeared from my brain. We're in Zagreb now. Yeah, apologies for the lag, folks. That's a real shame, but hopefully it hasn't detracted from the previous 2.5 hours or so. I mean, I do have a mod, as I said before, I have a mod for traffic density. So it might also be that if it's just at the wrong point with a lot of things spawning, as there would be around here. Maybe the game can't cope. I like the mod because it makes traffic density more realistic. It actually has like rush hour, like it would be now, right? It's what time is it? 9 AM. So this is rush hour. That's why there's so much traffic around. Whereas then at night, traffic really, is really trimmed down. Rather than in the original version, the density is just like flat all the way through the game. Maybe they're going to update it at some point, but from what I understand, the base traffic density is just a flat amount during the entirety of the game, and it doesn't change based upon the time. Or if it does, it doesn't change that much. So you've got mods that increase the traffic density and also make it more realistic. Oh, okay, so that was lag-induced steering failure, that was.
Go straight on, and then turn right.
Because it was lagging so much, I didn't actually know how far it was past the junction.
Turn right.
There we go. We're here. So we made it.
It's all over now.
Oh, and again, I thought I'd braked, but I hadn't. So yeah, definitely not going to carry on with any more, even if I was awake enough to do it. If anybody knows potentially what this could be, do feel free to let me know. Because like, it's not all the way through, it's only at certain moments, right? That's what I'm thinking, there's maybe something that started up on my PC that is just now... I would not be surprised if I tab out and I just see antivirus running or something. Right, can I park this in one go? Nope, not quite. There's a little like concrete thing I'm trying to miss. Can I miss it? Yes, there we are. Close enough. Not my best effort, but it'll do. Excellent. Whew. Okay. Job well done. Sweet. Okay. And with that, I am signing off for this episode. So, yeah, again, apologies for the lag at the end. I hope it didn't distract from the rest of the episode. And if anybody has any ideas for things to talk about, then feel free to leave it in the comments below. I probably won't do another one over Christmas, because I want to do some other things. But I hope I can do an episode and release it sort of towards the end of January or so, maybe once a month. That seems a fairly sensible thing to do, especially for an episode or for a video this length. And yep, I've run out of things to say because I'm very tired. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed our drive today. So I can quickly show the map before we finish off, so you see where it was we went. So we started off. Oops, come on, game. So we started in the south of Italy at Taranto, drove a short trip up to Bari with the yacht, and then we drove all the way from Bari up via Milan, around Turin, up to Paris. We went to the north part of Paris here, and then now we've gone from Paris. We cut across. Where do we exactly go? We went to Strasbourg via Stuttgart via Munich, and down this way, across Slovenia, and then to Zagreb. So that's where we're going to finish. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the next episode very, very soon. Obviously, this is going to be released around New Year, so Happy New Year to you all. I hope 2024 is an amazing year for you. And if unfortunately it's a bit of a difficult year, then hopefully I'll be around as much as possible to provide welcome distractions for you. So take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. See you very soon. Bye bye.